Okay, I believe we're live.
We are live.
So today we're going to talk about the Safe Schools program in Victoria. So I'm here with Gary Orsum, who does some absolutely hilarious and informative videos. His videos with story times are just brilliant. How you doing, Gary?
Yeah, I'm quite well, mate. How are you today?
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And we're also here with Indy, who is a stats nerd and makes some really, really good, well-produced videos. How you doing, mate?
Great. Love to be known as the stats nerd. Gets me hard.
And I'm also here with Marra Jane, who is a mum, anti-feminist, and all-round shitlord. How you doing, Marra?
I'm pretty good.
Well,
and how are you?
Yeah, good. I also wanted Peach Bailey to get on, but she couldn't make it because apparently having a roof over her head is more important than talking shit on the internet. So,
that is pathetic.
Yeah. I know. I suggested she just quit her job because this is far more important, but yeah, she didn't agree with that.
Priorities.
Yeah, that's it. All right, Gary.
How big a house does a peach need anyway?
Yeah. Do peaches even need houses?
No, just a fruit bowl.
Yeah. All right. Well, Gary, did you want to start off with talking a bit about what the Safe School program is? Because you've done quite a few videos on it.
Yeah, well, I'm not an actual authority on it. I've sort of just delved into it here and there. I mean, I just know from my experience of what I've read about it that I'm certainly opposed to it, and I see it as a real cultural Marxist push, and that it doesn't really have anything to do with anti-bullying or bullying programs, that it's to promote LGBTI ideology in school children. And I see it as basically what they're trying to do is engineer society in the future by effectively taking control of everyone's children.
I just see it as child abuse, really, especially given that they're teaching this at such a young age.
Yeah, well, the federal government sort of did come in, through public concerns about the program, and say that it was to be limited to secondary schools only. Daniel Andrews, Premier of Victoria, completely defied that and said he would, the Victorian state government would fund the Safe Schools program themselves and really take no notice of the federal government's directives on that matter. But I have had some people comment and say, look, it's only in Victoria. Well, it's only mandatory in Victoria. You've got over 500 schools throughout the country that have taken up the program voluntarily, which is easy for them to convince them to do, because our state school system, and not just here in Australia but overseas, are completely inundated with feminism. That they'll all get on board with it willingly. And lately there's been articles about 4-year-olds saying that they want to transition their gender, and 4-year-old is before kindergarten. So the evidence is there that it's filtered right down to toddlers and preschool are taking on board Safe Schools principles and implementing them into their curriculums everywhere that they can.
I think it's important that we don't dismiss the origins of where this comes from. Now, Ros Wood wrote a paper. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Bolt Report, but if you ever want to see something vaguely conservative, it's probably one of the only places you go. Mark Latham came on that program 3 months ago with a paper that Ros Wood had written back in 1995. Now, in that paper, she says, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I'm trying to remember, but she says something like education should not just be children, it's about producing the next generation of activists. Now, she's an avowed That's what it says. And she's an avowed Marxist. So it's not hard to put it together. I mean, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is someone who said that we need to replace the Australian flag with the communist flag on top of Parliament House, alongside the gay flag. I mean, this person wants a communist, quasi-socialist state. She wants to do it via children. I mean, Lenin said something similar: "Give me your kids for 4 years, and I'll," I forget what the quote was, but I mean,
I've got the quote
there
in
is
front. Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I've sown upon will never be uprooted.
Right, and so this is not just feminist man haters. This is an entire ideology to institute what we know is a failed ideology, but some people, for some reason, either don't understand history, have never read it, or they think that, this time will be different because we didn't do it the right way around last time. I think that's important to put that out there.
Well, in I think it was 2015 at the Marxism conference, she gave a speech where she said heteronormativity and oppression of LGBTQI plus, whatever it is these days, is woven into the fabric of capitalism. I was listening to it just going, this is fucking unbelievable. And there are people who support this.
Yeah.
Because cultural Marxists are obsessed with what they see as class struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely fucking scary.
Yeah, I think another important thing about Ros Ward, co-founder, or one of the main or most publicly known co-founders of the Safe Schools program, is her academic qualifications. I've actually got her profile up here. I won't screen share it at this time, but it basically lists her qualifications. She has an honours degree and a master's degree in gender studies at the University of Sussex, because she originally, my understanding is, she originally hails from England. She doesn't have any qualifications in child psychology or anything to do with the raising of children. I wouldn't even call it academic qualification. I would call it her entire indoctrination is in gender studies. And we're all familiar with pictures of Ros Ward. She looks like she looks like some boy from the 60s. She's obviously a very extremely gender confused, in my perception, gender confused person herself. And this seems to me to be very much driven about her own personal wants and desires, and how she wants to live in a world full of people that look and think like her. And sorry, go on.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's atypical of these kind of gender warriors, if you like, that, as you said, she's got no child psychology background, or there's no biology. As we know in gender studies, biology is kind of shunned. I mean, it doesn't really exist. We're blank slates. There's no difference between men and women. It's all socialized, and where they come at it. And it's a very convenient thing to do, is just to ignore innate biological traits or evolutionary psychology, the differences in behavior between men and women. They pretend that there are none, and that's just nonsense. But that's how they shoehorn in their ideology. And the other thing is, I think as well, is that these people, I mean, it's about educating kids, but a lot of the feminists, I mean, look at what they've done to the family violence narrative. It is violence against women. And the people that suffer the most in this are usually kids. And the kids are forgotten, because a lot of these feminists are anti-family. They're lesbians. They don't care about kids. They don't care about families.
Yep.
It's not on their agenda.
Now, this actually brings up one of the points I was going to make. There was a study done back in 95 through to 97 by the CDC called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, or ACE. Now, what they did was they identified what was effectively child abuse. Now, two of the, I think it's about 10 that are here, is emotional neglect and emotional abuse. Now, if we start teaching children that their masculinity is toxic, I would assert that that is emotional abuse and emotional neglect. Now, the study went on to track what would actually happen as a result of this, and they found that the more abuse you had as a child, the more likely you'd be to commit suicide, end up in prison, have depressive disorders, and all this sort of stuff. There's another study done in 2007, and one of the results was, where was it? The ACE score had a strong graded relationship to attempted suicide during childhood, adolescent, and adulthood. So, yeah, I think that's very concerning.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget as well the other side about girls. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Jasmine. Oh God, what's her name? I follow her on Twitter. She's an Australian. Sorry,
Jasmine Newman.
Yeah, that's her. Now, she just wrote an article about this, and she was in touch with a Stanford graduate of political science and communication, and he said about this girls. Now, I'm just going to quote it here. Young people who are indoctrinated to believe that they are victims are more likely to lead a life full of drugs, abuse, poverty, maleducation, mental illness, and suicide. So it's not only toxic to tell boys that they're toxic. It's toxic to tell girls that they're consistently victims as well. It doesn't work out well for anyone.
And that's the issue I have with the safe spaces. Like, rather than teaching people self-esteem and how to defend themselves, they're trying to wrap everyone in bubble wrap so they have no capacity to deal with the harsh realities of life.
Yep. And
now,
a
Marra,
lot of this...
Sorry.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Marra, as a mum, how do you see this program?
I'm fucking terrified. I am absolutely terrified. Like, I keep making jokes about it, but I'm genuinely more and more every day considering quitting my job and homeschooling when my daughter's school age, because like has been said, it is incredibly mentally damaging to boys and girls alike to be pushing this narrative. And I know from personal experience that, yeah, when you are in that victim mentality and everything, like was said before, like, you are more prone to depression, suicidal thoughts, etc. And I don't agree with the ideology in the first place, but I definitely am even more opposed to it being taught to kids in school as fact when it's not. It's all like, this is all just conjecture on their end, and it's absolutely it's terrifying. I'm so scared of this coming to my state and my daughter being indoctrinated into their victim cult. It's I just don't know. Like, it's I don't, like, how else do you say it? It is literally the scariest thing that is happening in our country at the moment.
Yeah, it's quite bizarre.
About these policies being put in place on the idea of conjecture. Me being an older fella, I remember quite plainly being in my late teens and early 20s when the notion came out of it in Australia that you shouldn't discipline your children in any way, that was some form of abuse. And Sargon mentioned this in one of his videos where, and he's a bit younger than me, where he said, look, people were warning 20, 30 years ago, if you do this, what you're going to do, you're going to create a generation of narcissistic, entitled people that, can't take anything hard in life, and everything will be traumatizing to them because, they've never had to deal with any adversity in their lives. And where are we now?
Yeah, look at the younger half of my generation.
Yep.
What is
I'm
it like
so glad
to be?
my parents smacked me.
What is it like to be a member of the shittiest generation on earth? That must be an experience.
Well,
yeah, it's pretty shit.
I'm kind of glad because because Gen Y and millennials, while we're technically the same generation, people generally refer to the older half of the generation as Gen Y and the younger half as millennials. And I am a year into the Gen Y half of it, so I just miss out on being a millennial.
I dodged a bullet as well. I'm 29, so I was close, but not quite. So I think I'm about 10% smarter than the rest of them.
Yeah, it's not about. See, as a kid, I remember. I'm about 10 years behind Gary, I think. I think I'm not outing Gary's age here, but when I was a kid, like for example, rugby league, the rules of rugby league as a kid were exactly the same as the way the men played. Now, the game was shorter in length. Obviously, you weren't on the field as long, and the field was smaller, but the rules were exactly the same. And they brought in behind me, 1 year behind me is when they started dumbing it down, and it was about you got as many points as many passes were in it, and they took out scrums, and they took out this all started the year after me, and it was the start of the kind of, it's about fun and enjoying the game, and it's how you play the game. It's not about winning or losing, which is, it's just start out with good intentions. It's not a bad message. Yeah, you should enjoy the game, and you should walk up, win, lose, or draw, and shake the other person's hand at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But of course, it gets taken to an extreme, and everyone's a winner, everybody's equal. Well, they're not, and kids like to win. I mean, if you watch kids play sport, they really do like to win. So I'm talking mid 80s, maybe we're talking, and this sort of grew. And I've been watching this for 20 years, and I've been saying all along, what we're breeding mediocrity. Everything's wonderful. Everybody's got something to contribute. You know what? No, they don't. They don't actually. A lot of people don't have anything to contribute to particular topics, and it's okay to tell them to shut up.
And society really seems to be drifting away from meritocracy, which I think is really scary.
And that's another part of the socialist aspect of it. Look at the photo. Look at the word now that they use to ram in a lot of these rules, measures, recommendations, quotas. It's equity. Now, all it means is equality of outcome. That's all they're talking about. They don't. They look at this precisely backwards. They look at the outcome and they see, for example, 75% of the people in STEM fields at university are men. That's a problem. No, it isn't a problem actually, because if you have up front a system where men and women, boys and girls can make whatever choices they like about their careers, which they can in this country, and actually women probably have more choice since more of them go to university. That's not a problem. You don't look at the outcome and then decide that that's a problem. And if you're going to do that, then why don't you look at every single area where there's inequity against men and address that? Oh, you're not going to do that because you're feminist and you don't give a fuck.
And there's also incentive as well. If you make everybody equal, or you try to make everybody's outcome equal, you begin a mindset where people would say, well, what's the point of me striving for excellence and striving to do better when my outcome isn't going to be reflected as being any better than somebody that got a leg up and a helping hand and a subsidy and a payment, and it's almost also it's discriminating against the able body in lieu of the numbnut, so that the numbnut can turn out to be equal at the end.
Yeah, and
it's again go ahead.
I also find it so interesting that they're looking for equity here when, because we definitely do have a much leveler playing field in terms of equality of opportunity here, especially with schooling, because in America, for example, their loan system for college is ridiculous. They're private loans, so they have to either save, get scholarships, or take out these monstrous loans, whereas we have HECS here, which is actually really a very fair thing, because you don't even have to start paying it back until you earn over, I think, 54 grand a year. And
Yeah, but you know
we definitely
why?
have that equality of opportunity here.
Yeah, the American system is so fucked because they haven't learned a thing from the global financial crisis, where governments backed guaranteed mortgage-backed securities and interfered with that market. So instead of learning that lesson, see, in the United States, the government guarantees student loans. So if you're a financial institution, you have no incentive to be prudent about how you lend, because if it all goes tits up, the government's got your back. So the government interference, again, trying to do good, just makes education more expensive. It's ridiculous.
Indy, totally off topic quickly. You used to be an analyst, didn't you?
Yeah.
Do you reckon
Stock
we're
market.
months away from a property market crash? Because all the signs seem to be there.
Look, all the signs have been there for 8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I hope it happens. I want a house.
Yeah, so do I.
you just here's the thing I would say about predictions, and this goes for elections and pretty much everything, and it doesn't matter. No one's got a crystal ball. Now there are ways to identify overvalued markets, and clearly the stock market in the US is overvalued. Clearly the property market here is overvalued. But trying to pick when that rolls over is a crapshoot.
Yeah,
You can do. Talking about, it's going to be 3 months or 6 months. Don't listen to anyone who comes at you with that stuff. They don't know. It's a guessing game.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
There's definitely a downturn in property. For example, Mrs. Orsum and I have been actually contemplating. She brought it up the other day that we should really be. We rent, right, and so we should really be approaching the owner and the real estate about getting a reduction in rent, because we're actually paying $90 more per week than what is now the median price for rental for a 4x2 in the area that we live in.
Is that because you're in? I can tell people where you live. Yeah. So. Is that still a hangover of the mining boom falling off and prices generally still coming back? Is it specific to Perth, do you think?
That only seemed to, as far as my understanding is, it's sort of particular to WA at the moment. I don't know that it's because of the mining boom dropping off. I think that's something else. That the mining boom dropped off maybe 4 years ago, whereas this is something that sort of seems to have only happened in the last year to year and a half, or even last 12 months. The properties have gone right down. In the industry that I work in, which has a lot to do with building and renovation, there's actually started to be a little bit of a surge again. We're selling more product now. It was really bad like a year and a half to 2 years ago, where it's actually on the way up again. And so just before, when we were talking about equality of opportunity and those things, I just wanted to bring that back to the safe schools thing again, and about discriminating against, having to discriminate against one group in favour of another group, and sort of trying to get back on topic. That's one of the things I see in it, that a whole bunch of people, kids that are growing up, that for whatever reason are basically being neglected now. I've read articles where they say, well, now the kids that we would normally consider to be bullied, the fat, the ugly, the stupid, and all of that, are being completely left out in the cold because they're not gay.
Really? Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Well,
you're not special enough now. You're not an extreme enough outcast.
Yeah, but I mean, traditionally, when we all went to school, the fat kids got teased and the ugly kids got teased, whereas there's no program now for them, that it doesn't encompass everyone that's being bullied or everyone that's having a hard time growing up. It's only if you're LGBTI that you're giving special privilege, and the fat kids and the stupid kids are actually being completely, utterly completely forgotten about.
On the topic of bullying, I did a bit of research. Sorry, just give me a second. I'll try and pull it up. I have it here somewhere. There was a study on the Safe Schools wiki page. Yeah, I used Wikipedia. Don't judge me.
No. Oh, I don't have that.
There was a
problem that other people have with Wikipedia. Other people go, "Oh, it's not a good source" and all that. Well, I mean, not a bit of the most accurate source out there, but it's pretty good for sort of general
overviews.
Yeah, it's good to start you leading you on to other stuff. So there's a thing here that says Safe Schools Coalition Australia reports that 75% of same-sex attracted young people experience some sort of homophobic abuse or bullying. So I looked into this.
Sorry, could you repeat that because I just blanked or something. Go again.
75% of same-sex individuals experience some form of homophobic abuse or bullying.
Right.
So I started trying to dig up that source, and
you're going to find that 75% of people experience some sort of bullying, like when growing up. Like God, I was bullied at school, and who in this conversation is going to say that they weren't bullied in some form when they were growing up in school? Everyone was.
Yeah, and that's where it gets interesting, because I looked up their citation, and they actually said 68% as opposed to 75%. So they're not even consistent with their numbers. And in their study, it was extremely unscientific. It's not even peer reviewed. I'll pull it up and link it in the chat. But
you probably can't put links in that, depending on how you set.
Okay, I might have to do it afterwards. But yeah, the study that was done was only done on homosexuals and not done on straight people. So there's no comparison. And in that, I'll read you this very, very interesting sentence. For more than half of the participants, homophobic abuse impacted negatively on aspects of their schooling. However, and this is the good bit, 42% said homophobia had no impact at all. So for half of them, at least, it's not even an issue.
Yeah. Well, here's why is go back to what Gary said about teasing the fat kid, teasing the dumb kid or the ugly kid, or the smelly kid, or the kid that has shitty clothes or whatever. Why is, to be accepting, why is teasing someone based on their sexuality, gender preference or whatever, why is that any worse than the fat kid? I mean, you're stigmatizing something that doesn't need to be stigmatized. This idea that gay people are so persecuted compared to the fat kid or the ugly kid or whatever. It's really ridiculous. And again, it's a victim mentality. If this was really about anti-bullying, which it clearly isn't, then it would just have to be, okay, kids, look, there's all shapes and sizes, colors, sexualities, people who want to wear makeup even though they're male or whatever. And you don't bully anyone. Everybody's fine. All right. You judge people and you bring up Martin Luther King and you say, see that quote there? Yeah. That's the quote. Done. We're done now. There's your anti-bullying.
And you just push the whole treat people how you want to be treated crap. Like you come at it from that angle and not, you don't convince a 4-year-old kid that they're trans, for fuck's sake.
And even if the child says, that they want to be the opposite gender, if they're a girl, and say, I want to be a boy, or vice versa, the evidence, the study-based evidence is there that in 90% of, or 95% of cases, or even 98, I can't remember the figures, but it's in the 90s, they'll just grow out of it. It's just a phase they're going through. They don't really understand.
It's not 90s. It's about 80%. It's about 4 and 5. So the number, you may have seen the number that said between 70 and 98% of boys, and something like 50 and 80% of girls. So if you even it out, and because there's usually more boys doing this than girls,
Yeah.
it's about 80%. It's about 4 out of 5 kids will revert back. But I don't know. Did you see that not a documentary, news story about? Did a video on it. It's what was the kid's name?
Briella.
Briella. Did you see that? It's like what, 4 or 5
Yeah.
years old? Now,
Yeah, she's in like first grade or something, isn't she?
yeah. Now here's my problem though. Like when they talk about transitioning at 4 or 5 years of age, they're not talking about cutting off body parts. They're not talking about taking hormone blockers. They're basically talking about
Socially.
dress how they want. You know, if she wants to play with the girls and hang out with the girls and presumably go to the girls' toilet. That's what we're talking about. And my question is, if you're against that, and what do you tell a child? I mean, are you saying that you need to tell a child, sorry, you're a biological boy, that's it? Because if these kids, and remember, Gary, you've read the DSM definition. I put it in one of my videos. For a kid to be diagnosed as gender dysphoric, they have to have had this condition for 6 months. So literally 6 months, this kid is, you know, depressed, complaining every single day when you try to put shorts on them that they want to wear a dress, you know, all of that stuff. It's a miserable, miserable child. What do you tell a 4-year-old? Do you say, nah, you're a boy? Or do you, because I'm inclined to say, let them put a dress on, because we're not altering them chemically. We're not cutting bits off them. I don't really have a big problem with that, because the problem comes when they're 10 and 11 and they want to start taking hormone blockers. But by that time, quite a few have grown out of it.
Well, my thing there is it'd have to be sort of weighed against, you know, I mean, I'm really for a child sort of expressing themselves in the way that they want to. And I think, you know, parents are sort of just there to guide them and advise them, and not necessarily, you know, you only have to step in if they're sort of really doing something that's wrong. But, you know, I think when my daughter was young, I was very big on explaining things to her, you know, and she didn't tend to throw tantrums or things because I never said, no, don't do it because, and then it was like, why? And because I said so, I take the time to give an explanation and say, well, this might happen or that might happen. And, you know, if a kid wants to say, let's say this 6-year-old and they're in school and they say, you know, it's a boy and I feel like wearing a dress, you know, you have to say, you have to be realistic and say, well, you know, if you want to do that and that's how you feel comfortable, sure, but you have to remember that not everyone's going to feel the same way. And people are going to tease you, so that's something that you have to be ready for.
My worry is that, as I've said before, is that because they promote this as such a wonderful thing, that, you know, let's say your son goes into Toys R Us, goes down the pink aisle and picks up a Barbie doll, and all of a sudden they, oh fuck, we better take him into the psychologist and see, maybe he wants to be a girl, you know. But gender dysphoria is like behavior of at least 6 months duration, where they're continually, you know, throwing tantrums and saying, I want to be the opposite sex, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so at the end of the day, my thought is, I know it's just a cliche, but don't you? The kid's well-being.
Yeah, like I think there are some cases of children, and most common example I can think of is like there have been cases of little boys try to cut off their own penis because they're that actually like they've got, it's that bad that, and I think in those cases I don't think it's inappropriate to at least get the whole process going. And I think even in those cases I wouldn't necessarily object to at least early puberty hormone blocking. I would probably say let them at least start puberty a little bit, because puberty can reverse a lot of these feelings. But when it's just, you know, a little boy wanting to wear his mummy's clothes and put his mummy's makeup on and stuff. That's not gender dysphoria. You know, that's just him wanting to be like mummy.
What's interesting is a very close friend of mine quite a few years ago considered himself to be, what was it, gender fluid? I'm still trying to wrap my head around what that was. Now, I didn't even know about this until quite recently. I think it was only a few months ago. But what he told me was that he was involved in the queer community, and he obviously had some psychological issues that he was going through. But the queer community actually put a lot of pressure on people to be a gender that is not male or female, not one of the binaries. And when he dealt with the psychological issues that he was going through, he went back to being a man and he was sorted. So I would assert that everyone pushing this multi-gender, fucking 72 genders or whatever it is these days, is really just putting pressure on people, and it's become like the new cool thing.
Yeah, well, that's true. I was talking to some dumb American last night, and she was saying, I had a few wines, so I can't remember exactly what it was, but she was saying that when she was, I think, 16, she was dating this girl because she's bisexual. And her girlfriend actually convinced her that she was non-binary. So like, some dumb American used to be what anyone that's listening, go and subscribe to her, because when she gets to 2,000 subs, she's going to put up photos of when she was a fat feminist, non-binary 16-year-old. So I want to see them.
I see a lot of this. I see this sort of these. I don't know if you've been watching,
guys.
I don't know if you've been watching the Jordan Peterson thing in Canada about the whole law they're introducing in Canada to basically make it illegal to or not recognize people's pronoun choices like Z or Z or something like this. Now, I think that, and they passed it in the lower house, and of course Trudeau came out and said it was wonderful and everything. Now, I see this as just when I was at school, you know who this was? This was what you called goths. These are kids who wanted to be special and different, so they dressed up in black and they put fucking makeup on and eyeshadow, and they sat in the corner and they talked about how life was sad and evil, you know, and it's all really heavy, man, you know, and they smoked spliffs after school. Yeah, and then the emos were the next one after that. And to me, this is just a progression of people who want to be different and special, and they've grown up in an environment where people consistently tell them that they are. And this is a, I don't like use the word, it is a search for identity, but they've confused identity with sexuality, and it's a cult. I think it's a cult.
The search for identity, and I think, Indy, you've heard me bring this up, the whole and sort of tying it in with the peer pressure side of things as well, is you know, there's definitely wanting, you know, to be accepted and things like that. And to me, the classic example of all of that is queer speak. You know, like you brought up in the country around everybody else, just because you're gay, why is it all of a sudden you just have to speak like this all the time? It's just so manufactured, you know. And and to me, see, I find, I've got less of a problem with somebody being gay than
somebody being a fag.
Than somebody going, oh, look at that white stuff on the ground. Did somebody spill some yogurt? Oh no, that was me. I farted. Sorry about that. Not a bit of crass humour there, but you know that. And to me, it's very much. Well, you know, on one hand, you say that you're victimised and you're discriminated against, but you're waving this massive flag around when you speak that way, saying, look at me, I'm so gay. I mean, and there's a pride, you know, you call it gay pride. Now, you can argue that it's a pushback against heteronormativity, and most of us are, and that I mean, I'm not going to deny that you're a minority, but I mean, you brought this up, Indy, about when was the last time you actually read about some sort of gay or LGBT
hate crime?
Hate crime. It was one that happened. It'd be everywhere over the news.
Oh, of course it would be. The ABC would, it'd be it'd be a fucking call for a royal commission. There'd be a 7:30 report.
Wouldn't it?
It'd be shocking. Yes. I want to go back to now, just because I think it's important for younger people. This is not meant to be condescending, but look, I finished uni in 1995, and I came from country New South Wales, and I moved to Sydney. Now, quickly, I was in the Sutherland Shire for a start, but then I was in the eastern suburbs, and this was the time of when the gay Mardi Gras started to happen, and they went down Oxford Street in Sydney. And look, back then it really was about, it was accepted to be gay, and everybody came out and celebrated, and gay, straight people came out, they watched, everybody loved watching the floats. You couldn't even get a fucking seat. It was just so packed. And it really was, yes, we're acceptable now. And it's like, and I went to clubs, gay clubs, you have an ease and you're talking to gay people. It was all fine. This is 20 years ago. And today what's so annoying from my perspective is I have people half my age sort of saying, you need to respect gay people. It's like, fuck, mate, I've been respecting gay people since before you were born. This is not an issue. You're making it an issue. It's that old problem that Douglas Murray says about people on the left, because it usually is people on the left. They have a demand and supply problem. There's actually a really short supply of actual homophobes, of actual racists in the world, and they need to invent them. I mean, this whole Bill Shorten scare campaign about if we have a plebiscite on gay marriage, that people are going to run out and start committing suicide in the streets. It's absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, if Bill Shorten thinks that, why has all he been talking about for 3 months? Sign up to the plebiscite. Bill Shorten is going to be more responsible for gay suicides than anyone. It's just such a ridiculous argument. And because when I see gay people, literally it's like this to me. You being gay is about as important as you being left-handed. You're not the majority of the population, but I really don't give a fuck. I say, oh, yeah, okay, so you have to hit a drive, you have to hit a slice down the first fairway, and I have to hit a draw. That's it. That's all we're talking about. It's so unimportant.
The thing about being left-handed now, it's like society's coming out and saying, well, we've got these left-handed people. We have to make everyone accept, and we need to put left-handed shoes in every store.
Yeah.
Well, I'm left-handed, so I really fucking wish people would.
You have left-handed scissors. What more do you want?
Yeah.
Really? Where?
Everywhere.
They're probably a bit hard to find, actually, because every pair of scissors I pick up is for right-handed people.
Exactly. And we're discriminated against.
Go to Office Works to find some.
When you pick up a pair of left-handed scissors, they're fucking uncomfortable.
They really are. I feel bad for left-handed people.
Yeah.
Maybe I should start playing the victim so I can get a bit more special treatment. We need more CEOs that are left-handed.
I don't know where you are on the oppression stack, though. I'd still say white male, left-handed, you're not going to get much oppression.
I'm pretty sure I'm the most oppressed.
Yeah, and I'm straight as well, so I'm basically the biggest piece of shit on the planet.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who the most oppressed left-handed people are, and I can tell you this from experience, and that's left-handed musicians. I feel really bad for left-handed musicians because they can't walk into a jam session, right, with anybody. They can't sit down at the drums because they're set up for right-handers. They can't grab somebody's guitar and start to play because they're all strung up right-handed. They've got to have their own instruments. I've seen it many times. Left-handed musicians are fucking out in the cold when it comes to jam sessions, and
every day is a struggle. No one should play the recorder,
but they can.
Where left-handed people come into their own is, if you're in a masturbation competition, then you're on equal, you're on equal standing then.
Yeah,
and I am pretty good at that, so lots of practice.
Me too.
I recommend, though, if you always use the opposite hand when you're wanking, because it's unnatural. It feels like somebody else is doing it for you. Because women don't know how to do it, so it feels like a woman wanking you off if you use the other hand.
Well, the other trick I
Just
use
out
is you
there.
go and sit on your hand for like 5 minutes so it goes numb,
Absolutely.
and then it just makes the experience even better again.
I love being
Or
the
you-
only girl in this conversation.
Or you could introduce the precursor of when sex machines are going to come out, and sort of robotic sex and that, and just wank off with a pair of pliers.
Jesus.
Consider this a free education, Marra.
I'm learning so much about male masturbation.
Yeah.
Something I will never need to know.
Yeah. Well, that's a very narrow-minded attitude, because later on in life, when you and the boyfriend are not exactly up to it, he might just say, "Look, can you?" He'd appreciate that.
It's good for marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, let's quickly talk
Okay.
about domestic violence. And let
Ooh,
me
yes,
just
please.
read you something. Oh, yeah, I know this is one of your favorite topics. So in the Victorian Education website about the Safe Schools program, they've got this epic overview of the whole program and how it works, and it's about 200 pages. Now, the very first paragraph is this: violence prevention and respectful relationships education is an important focus of the Victorian government's action plan to prevent violence against women and their children. 2012, 2015, and the federal government's national plan to reduce violence against women and their children. First paragraph, fuck men.
Yeah. Because men are incapable of being victims of domestic violence, and we must protect the women folk, and you're a bastard for even suggesting otherwise.
And I think the inclusion of children is just a subterfuge. They don't. It's
No,
not
they
about
don't care about children.
protecting children, because I don't know if you guys saw Tilde's video in the last week.
Yes,
about the guys that are paying. Yeah.
about the
So
abuse and
actually, yes, women are responsible for about 55 to 60% of all child abuse.
Yeah.
Gary's noted before, this shouldn't be that surprising, since women are primarily, or the majority of time spent with children is in the presence of the mother. Generally. So this shouldn't be that shocking. So the idea that to conflate, it is fair to say that men are more abusive to women than vice versa, at least when it comes to injuries and reports. But the idea that you would lump children in there, when mothers as a group, biological mothers as a group, are far more likely to abuse their children than any other group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone saw the After Hours live stream he did on that. He responded to a comment that really fucking got to me. Someone said I can't remember exactly, but it was more or less saying it was very disingenuous of him to include the neglect stats as child abuse, because they're not actively doing anything to hurt the child.
God.
And
bullshit.
I can remember in high school, I did exploring early childhood and community and family studies. I can't remember which class it was in, but we actually had workers from community services come out and speak to the class about foster care and all that stuff. And they actually told us about a story that they went to the home of a single mother. The neighbors had called the police, and they brought docs workers with them because there was a 3-month-old baby. This child, they all but one of them threw up when they entered the baby's room. There was a moldy bottle in the cot with the baby. The baby hadn't been changed. Its nappy hadn't been changed in over a week. The bed was covered in urine and feces, and there were actually maggots in the nappy, consuming the child.
Jesus
Be
Christ.
hospitalized for a week and a half on antibiotics, and it was that dehydrated. The mother couldn't even remember the last time she fed the baby.
That's fucked.
Long enough for the bottle to go moldy. So don't, if someone ever tries to tell me that neglect, not actively doing something, isn't as bad as like smacking your child once, go fuck yourself. Seriously.
So I think psychological abuse is actually worse than physical abuse, because I had a stepdad who would kick the shit out of me as a child, but the psychological aspect was far, far worse. It was the constant living in fear that got to me, like, you know, for quite a few years into my adulthood. But, you know, the physical abuse was, you'd cop it, it'd hurt, you'd go into your room, cry it off, and then you'd be fine. But just like anytime you hear a loud noise and you freak out because you think you might be in trouble, that's the stuff that's damaging.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that topic, you know, when we've spoken in streams earlier about, you know, believing that it was a bit more than 50% for women because they're the main caregivers. I came across this today. Now, is that screen sharing with you guys at the moment? Can you see that?
Yep.
If you go down there, there's a whole bunch of PDFs and things just here where you get like right into it. But the basic pie chart at the top is here: 71% of children killed by one parent or killed by their mothers. 60% of the victims are boys. So here you've got, you know, your lovely female in pink child murderers, and this is the stat. So it's actually a lot more than it's a lot more than half.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that 70%, at 71% represents the mother is involved. So the stepfather being the primary killer in the situation, she was at least involved. So maybe it was a case, it could have been a case of neglect where there was, you know, a mother and a stepfather, and they just let the kid fucking, you know, they got high all day, and the kid, you know, accidentally tripped over and killed itself. Or something like that.
What chart is doing is it's closing the gap between, because, you know, when a child is killed by the father figure, it's the new boyfriend, it's the new man in life. The biological father's actually been booted off the scene. And what that pie chart is showing is strictly only biological mothers versus biological fathers.
Yeah.
So this narrative of, you know, protecting women and children against violence, it's, you know, ultimately I mean, I've made this argument before that it just leads to more violence because it's unnecessarily empowering, and this is not against women, but it's empowering female perpetrators to continue to go about their crimes undetected and unpunished and with immunity. Yeah.
And go ahead, Marra.
Oh, no, like I was just going to, like, you know how we always hear the teach, like, well, in terms of domestic violence, like there's white ribbon, like men need to take an oath to end
1 in 3
violence against women and stuff. Well, I went to antenatal classes when I was pregnant, and I didn't remember, you know, having to take an oath to not murder my child. But, you know, like it's just a really it's a really stupid approach because it's so few people that, like, because a lot of the time as well, I haven't actually seen, and there could be some out there that I just haven't seen, but I haven't seen studies about how many men or how, like, are perpetrators, like what percentage of men, because, like, a lot of women, like, that I know of, like, for example, they've dated like 5 abusive guys, right? But then because I like the type of area that I live, a lot of people know a lot of other people and everything, and they've abused, like, each one of those guys have been in abusive relationships with like 10 women, like not like where they've been abused, where they've abused 10 women, but that's only like one person accounting for the abuse of 10 people.
In a way, you can say it's equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome argument again. Women have every opportunity to start it, right? But you know, unfortunately, well, if I can use the term unfortunately, men are better at finishing it, and that's just because of physical strength. And that's just how it is. And so men are always going to sort of come off at the end as being seen to be the perpetrators because, again, they're stronger. They're gonna win, so they're going to be perceived as the beater or upperer.
Yeah,
Well, Indy, you
this-
did a video on this not too long ago where you were talking about how about 50% of domestic violence cases are them beating the shit out of each other and not some guy coming home angry and just starting to swing.
Well, I can tell you the exact statistics on, and this comes from the State of Knowledge Project, which is this is the gold standard on domestic violence. This has got 1,700 peer-reviewed articles. Now, the fact that they're peer-reviewed means a lot of the gender studies bullshit won't make it in. So these are all vetted, and these come from everywhere around the world. Not everywhere, but primarily Canada, England, and the United States, not Australia, because it's very hard even to get funding in Australia to do an actual real study on domestic violence. That's another story. But I'll tell you, here's facts and statistics on intimate partner violence. Now, 58% of all intimate partner biological is directional, which means it's both spouses having a go at each other, partners having a go at each other. And you know this is true because of the statistics we have in Australia. The only bit that you can confirm here in Australia is that 23% of kids reported seeing their father have a go at their mother. 2% of kids said they saw their mother having a go at their father. So it's almost identical. So 58% is bidirectional. Now, when you get to unidirectional, that's the other 42%. 2/3 of the unidirectional is women to men. All right? Women to men. And the other third is men to women. So if you want to get down to brass tacks, women are instigating it more than men. Now, I don't think that's a shock personally, the way women behave. But of course, the outcomes, as Gary's just said about finishing it, just think about it. All other things, let's just say that domestic violence was equal across the board, equal in verbal abuse, equal in physical abuse. Well, women are going to end up in the hospital more just by virtue of the fact that men are stronger, they hit harder, they're more aggressive, they're bigger, just generally speaking. And that's why I think it's easy to look at, for example, one woman a week being killed in Australia by a partner, as opposed to, which you never hear of, by the way, about one man a month gets killed by his partner in Australia. You don't hear about those.
I thought it was one every 10 days.
And
yeah, I can't find the stats on male deaths.
I found... I've got a link for that. It's about one man a month. It's about a dozen to 15 a year.
I might have to steal that off you.
Okay, because I know that I can't remember. Like, I can't remember how long ago I looked at it. So depending on how long ago I looked at it, would have, like, this year alone, it might have been an average of one every 10 days. But Destroy the Narrative lists all domestic, like, men and children that are killed by a current or former domestic partner.
Well, this whole 1 in 3 myth is just horseshit. Like, Indy, you've done a few videos on these, and I'll just show you this study. So this is by the Crime and Justice Statistics. I might have actually got this from you, Indy. It basically says that domestic violence hasn't changed over the past 10 years. It's been relatively stable. And it further goes on to talk about how it's mostly in rural areas, alcohol is usually involved, poverty is involved. If you're Aboriginal, I think you're 6 times more likely to suffer from domestic violence. So the stats are just massively skewed. This whole 1 in 3 myth by White Ribbon is just
let me tell you where the 1 in 3 comes from. All right, 1 in 3 comes from what was it? The 1996 Personal Safety Survey. But what the subterfuge here is that it's of a current partner. Now, it's not. This is what the ABC reported, which was then picked up by the media. I put this in a video recently, 8 years ago, and subsequently spread around that 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence from their partner in their lifetime. That's not true. It's high. There's about 4 in 10 women in their lifetime will experience violence or the threat of violence. And this comes from men or women. So as I've said in the video, if you are in a supermarket and you ram trolleys with another woman and she says, bitch, if you do that again, I'll slap you upside the head, in that number, right? So there's no gender distinction and there's no distinction between threats of violence or physical violence. So 4 in 10 women in their lifetime, mind you, in their lifetime. So I'm actually surprised it's that low. So you're telling me 6 out of 10 women never experience any violence in their lifetime. That's amazing to me. And I was even surprised more by the fact that men 10. But of course, no one gives a fuck that men's actually higher. Now, when you get to, now I did the numbers on this the other day. You can do them yourself. And whenever I put up a number, I rarely quote it. I mean, I download the spreadsheets and I figure it out myself. Now, the 2012 personal survey, if your chances of being abused by your current partner, the person you're with, is about 1 in 37 in your lifetime. Not 1 in 3, 1 in 37. That was the ABC's mistake. Now, the chances of you being, now think about it, you've got obviously way more former partners than you have current partner. You've only got one current partner usually, unless you're in one of those weird relationships where you're sharing yourself around. But that number is 1 in 6. So you have a 1 in 6 chance in your life, if you're a woman, of being abused by a former or current partner. The stat for men is about 1 in 18.
Right.
Okay. So, and think about it again, like even 1 in 6 is low. I mean, we're talking about in your lifetime, and we're talking about violence and threats of violence. So it may have been, and sexual assault and threats of sexual assault. So it could have just been, I'm going to fucking rape you, bitch. That's counted.
Jesus Christ.
Brush, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
And
that is it.
I honestly think that I wouldn't be surprised if the genuine stats or the genuine numbers were actually higher for men. But let's be honest, you guys aren't, like, men generally aren't little pussy bitches who go, oh my God, my ex-girlfriend just threatened to come around and stab me or whatever. Like, I'm going to have to report that. Like,
no, the male feminists would.
But the stats on that, so approximately, because, you know, we used to hear, you know why we don't hear about this anymore, about how, oh, half of all women who are abused don't report it. Well, because double the number of men abuse. So they've stopped banging on about that one, because if you can backwardly engineer the numbers, and if double the number of men are not reporting, then the idea that only 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 men is a victim of domestic violence goes up. And now it's probably more like 2 in 5 men.
Well, let me read you this quickly. So this is by the Australian Bureau of Statistics in a study on how they studied domestic violence. So like studyception or something.
Yeah.
So in the paragraph, definitional complexities, it says, at the time of publication, there was no single agreed definition for family, domestic, and sexual violence. So black and white, they're like, oh, maybe this is, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Now, a couple pages later, the type of behavior varies and can include sexual violence, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse and intimidation, economic or social deprivation, damage of personal property, and abuse of power. So if I go to my girlfriend's place, have a tantrum, and throw a plate up against the wall, I haven't done anything to her, but that's domestic violence. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous.
Yep. Well, mate, it's worse than that, because I don't know if you saw the new recommendations handed down to the family court just recently.
No.
Well, this is what's going to constitute domestic violence. Staring, prolonged staring,
Fucking
the silent treatment. So let's say you and your wife partner had an argument, and you've gone and sat down on the couch, you put on the footy and you turned up the volume, and this is your way of sort of tuning it out, because otherwise, worse. So this is your way, and she's walking past you going, or you're just going to sit there, are you? And you don't answer her, right? This is going to be classed as domestic violence. They want this taken into consideration in family court.
Right. And as I've said, like arguing with them is domestic violence, but not arguing with them is domestic violence.
Everything. It's like I nearly put this in my video. It's like Anita Sarkeesian. Everything is racist. Yeah. Everything is sexist. You have to point it all out. Everything is domestic violence, and you have to point it all out.
Well, that means I get domestically abused basically every day. So where's my shelter?
Yeah, well, actually, that actually just reminds me of something that I read in the curriculum for the Respectful Relationships program today. I'm just trying to find it. Here we go. It's, I don't know if you guys have a copy of the curriculum, but it's on.
Yeah, I've got it open in front of me.
It's on page 31. It's ensure that all types of sexual harassment are covered. For example, and like there's some that are actually, you know, I'm not against that being brought up. Oh my
God, this is retarded.
But there is staring is sexual harassment, and unwanted invitations to go on dates. That is sexual harassment.
Yeah. See, this is what they want. This is the Oh, did you cut out there, man? What's that mean?
They want men and women to stop getting together.
Yes.
There's another one here that says requests for sex is sexual harassment. Now, professionally, I'm a dating coach.
Yeah. Oh, he's cutting out.
Yeah, he's cutting out. I don't think he knows he's cutting out, though.
I can hear you guys.
We might have to just soldier on there.
Yeah.
Just how badly is it?
Yeah, it's pretty bad, man. You're totally cutting out most of the time.
Now, I don't know about this one. Okay. He can't leave the stream without.
Oh, he can't leave the stream.
He can't leave the stream. As far as I know, he can't leave the stream.
No.
He said to just keep going. That he'll be back. But you guys like this is. You saw Gillian Triggs. Now, I'm glad Gillian Triggs is in some shit at the moment. She's going to be brought before the Senate for lying to the Senate, as she has done a few times now. But recently, if you go back just a month ago, NUS, remember the NUS survey, Gaz, that you sent me? Yeah. The National University of Students Women's Department survey on sexual harassment. Now, the number one source of sexual harassment was staring. Now, they came out and said 70% of girls at university were experiencing sexual harassment. The number one. And they had these anecdotes about, as they love to do, they give the stats and then they put in these anecdotes. And one of these anecdotes was this girl, and this was supposed to sound horrific. She said, a guy followed me out the school gates and asked me on a date. This was the horrific incident.
So flattered. It's like, wow, I must look fucking amazing today. Thank you.
This is the weird thing. Like, now, if they're basically saying to guys, you can't approach a girl really, unless basically, I mean, you're going to have to sort of, what do? You go, can I talk to you about a potential get together or something? No? Okay, I'm out. I mean, you literally, they're trying to outlaw you going up and saying, hey, I know we take this class together and I was wondering if you would be interested in getting together for a cup of coffee and maybe we could talk about, Psych 101 or whatever it is. That to happen anymore. And if you tell boys that this is not acceptable behavior, that's the end of the species, because girls aren't going to fill that void.
No, I can flat out say, and like, I know that this is just me, but guess what? In terms of how I am with guys, I am pretty, I'm pretty normal female. Like, while I was single, if I was out and I saw a guy that, I wanted to talk to and stuff, I would just adjust my body language and send him flirty smiles and wait for him to come over to me.
Mm-hmm. That's the way it works. But see, and that's normal, natural behavior. That's how we've been programmed for thousands of years. But if you now tell men, like now you do that exactly what you said, you give the signals, and he's like going, oh, well, I'm actually not allowed to do that because that's sexual harassment. I mean, that's where it leads to. You've got guys that their biology's telling them one thing, but they've been indoctrinated into another. You know,
yeah.
But this is you've got to understand, this is what a lot of these feminists want. They hate men, they don't like families, they're not interested in heteronormativity. So this is the result they want. And I say, okay, if that's what you want to do, if you really want to segregate society, okay, girls, why you can segregate your society over there with all the girls, and you can all become electricians and plumbers and keep the lights on in your community, and your services will be paid for out of your taxes, and the men will go over here and we'll do the same thing. And guess what? Our fucking surplus, we'll have a surplus of, we won't even know what to do with all the fucking money that's not going towards women, and we'll see how you're getting on in 6 months, ladies, because it'll be a fucking shit show.
Oh yeah. It's I haven't actually even finished looking through this curriculum, I'm not gonna lie. Because every time I went to, like, I've probably gone through about 2/3 of it now, but every time I tried, I literally had to, because I printed it out because it was just much easier for me to read and like note the pages that really bugged me and everything. And I just ended up having to throw the folder down and walk away like every couple of pages. So I haven't even managed to finish getting through it yet. It's so bad. But like on page 72 as well, go back to the domestic violence thing, there is a list of websites where you can go for help. And there's the Men's Referral Service, for example, which is where you can go if you are worried about the violence you will cause.
Yes.
Like,
am I still cutting out badly?
No, you're back.
No, you're back.
Okay, perfect. I just want to quickly go back to the sexual harassment bit before I forget. So suggestive comments or jokes, uninvited or unwanted invitations to go on a date, requests for sex. Like, I'm a dating coach, right? Now, the whole reason men struggle with dating and is really because most of them don't have any balls. Like, they're not willing to
they've been
go out
castrated.
and put their head on. Yeah, they're not willing to put their head on the chopping block. So if men can't ask a chick out or try and have sex with her, then there's going to be a lot of fucking single women out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, that's the point I made when you were off. Yeah, I don't know if you heard. It's just
No, I didn't.
I mean, this you probably know better than I do, but I know, and online it's even more sort of magnified. That it's about an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time men make the approaches, and online I think it's even more. It's like 90% or something like that. So if men pull back, and I've made this, I'll give you another example of happened, and we can see it. You'll hear people in MGTOW circles talk about the Japanese experience with the grass eaters, the herbivore men, right? And the herbivore men are these men they've opted out of that Japanese salaryman treadmill idea where they work a ridiculous amount of hours a week to support families or whatever. They're single. They're not interested in women. They work part-time or just enough to sustain their own lives and hobbies. So, like, they play computer games and that's it. That's all they give a shit about. And it's about that number. Around a third of young men between the ages of 18 and 25, I think the study was 18 and 26. Now, MGTOW say this and go, look, this is what's happening. Young men are doing it. But you know what the stat that they don't tell you is that about 45% of women, 40 to 45% of women in the same age group have also pulled back. And I would suggest to you, this is a theory of mine, that the causality that the women are pulling back precisely because the men have. because the women are not going to fill that void. Women have gone, well, they're not coming to us, and so I'm going to pull back anyway. And that's where you're going to get to. So as a guy, we all get nerves about approaching a woman in a bar, and sometimes it might take a couple of drinks to get one down. But I mean, if you're going to sort of criminalize that, I mean, that's, like I said, that's the end of the fucking species. And you can look at Japan for an example.
And birth rates are dropping incredibly. Now, I've had a lot of clients express serious concern to me because I'm a big believer that if you see a woman on the street that you're attracted to, there's no harm in approaching her. If she's not interested, she'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's fine. And most of the time you get a very good response from it. But a lot of guys are really petrified of doing it, not so much for the rejection part, but as a fear of being vilified by feminists for street rape.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, I've got to say, I'm not a fan of like girl on a bus who's got headphones in or is reading a book, like, because I probably wouldn't want to be bothered either. I mean, I don't think it rises to the level of sexual harassment.
Context is involved, so I do agree.
I don't. Of course, it doesn't rise to the level of sexual harassment, but in Nottingham, in if you've seen that law, it does rise to that level over there. It's ridiculous, but I would say generally I'm not going to bother someone who looks like they're into something, and unless they look up and notice me and smile, I'm going to leave you alone.
Yeah.
I think I said to you in private conversation when we were talking the other day, 8-bit, that, to my mind, that going up and approaching a woman on the street is a losing thing anyway. Just because you see her and you think she's attractive, it's not the place, it's not the circumstance. You want to.
It depends.
You'd be surprised. You'd be very, very surprised because you tend to stand out.
I mean, I did it when I was young, and sure, it worked. But again, if you want to ensure your success, or I think just naturally falling into it in social gatherings.
Social circles are definitely the best way by far.
I will say I used to be friends with a guy who's a dating coach, and he went through like the pros and cons of day versus night game and everything, and apparently it depends on the guy as well as about whether or not they're better at day or night.
And it also depends on your personality. Like there are just so many different factors involved in dating. You can never really put it down to one thing. Yeah,
definitely. But I do know though that if I was like that's one thing that pisses me off about all of this as well, because like, let's be honest, I'm not engaged or anything. No one looking at me if I'm just walking down the street knows that I'm in a relationship. And if a guy gives me a smile or yells like a woo out the car or something, or comes up and says, "You look really nice today," or just something, I'm just like, fuck yes. I'm killing this today. Like, it's I love that feeling, and most women do.
Yeah, well, that's something that women will see. Men generally don't have that, and I think women take that for granted. And you may have seen that documentary about the woman who dressed up as a man for 6 months or 12 months, and she couldn't believe how harsh women are to men when they reject. Like it's just this constant barrage of rejection most of the time, and how women's defenses when a man approaches them are way up compared to if it's a woman. Like she would go up to women and she would try and chat them up, and she would get this really cold shoulder, and then she'd tell them like, "Oh, I'm actually a woman and I'm dressing like a man. I'm doing this experiment." And then the women would really warm up to them and be friendly to them. And she couldn't stand it. And it's something that women, especially these persecuted victimhood women who just think, everything's an intrusion on them. They just take for granted how lucky, I don't want to say lucky, but they are fortunate in a way. And Gary's brought this up before, Jessica Valenti argument.
Yeah, there's an article by Jessica Valenti, and I used it in the story video I did on the Nottinghamshire expansion of hate crime definition to include wolf whistling. And Jessica Valenti wrote an article basically saying, now that I'm older, I miss catcalling, and I didn't realise how much I miss it, and I should know better because I'm a seasoned feminist. Well, this is where your ideology comes around and bites you on your ass. And I read it in a very much, well, now you're growing up. Now you realise the value of being being a woman or being attractive, and that thing of men being the ones that will chase you, and how you can just sit there and pick and choose. And all of a sudden, she didn't use the term biological imperatives and that, but when I hear that sort of stuff, I think of the whole biological imperatives argument straight away, which Karen Strawn understands, I think, better than anyone.
It's funny.
Yeah.
There's 2 points I'll make. First of all, the most common reaction I get to, at least from women regarding approaching girls during the day, is, oh, if that ever happened to me, I'd just tell them to fuck off. That probably happens 1 in 50 times. Usually it's just like, oh no, I'm in a rush, I'm busy, I've got a boyfriend. That's the level of rejection you get. It's nothing. Yeah. And the other one is from girls in their 20s. The most common response I get to telling them I'm a dating coach is, oh, do men even need that? Oh my God, that's so stupid. But once they hit 30, it's all, oh my God, can you please teach more men to be better with women? Because my dating life sucks at the moment. So it does tend to flip around as they get older.
But then can you teach men? Can you teach men because I'm self-interested?
Exactly. Fuck self-responsibility.
Yeah, it's not suiting me.
Yeah, but that's so unbelievably arrogant, isn't it? I mean, to say that, can you teach men to be? I mean, dear, like I've read so many articles, and there was an article that went around Australia a long time ago about how there aren't enough eligible men, and they came out with this silly statistic that men that earn over a certain amount of money, there's only 150,000 of them in the country, and they're spread all over the place, and so the idea was that there are these millions of eligible women, and they tell themselves they're all beautiful, they're all smart, they're all funny. Guess what? Most of you aren't. No. Most of you are. Most women are fucking boring, and the only reason we talk to you is because we want to fuck you. And if we didn't want to fuck you, to the majority of you, because you're boring, you're not funny, you're oversensitive. I mean, this idea that it always is on the man to be, Jesus Christ. I mean, women literally don't have to develop like skills like.
But no, for a woman to get laid, she needs to be alive, and in some cases, not even that.
Yeah. Maybe it's a thing of my age, but whenever a man, men will probably usually say this in the absence of women, if a woman frustrates a man in any way, and she leaves the scene and there's 2 guys standing there, the guy that's been frustrated will turn around and go, if they didn't have a vagina, you wouldn't fucking talk to them. Right?
I mean, of course that's overly harsh, but I mean that remains is that that men are the ones that have to do the impressing, and apparently all you have to do as a woman is sit there and be impressed. Now, the thing about that is, I think that trade-off, because there was a cost-benefit analysis that men made, and it was worth it. But today, if young men have been constantly bombarded with this equity and equal relationships, it's going to be equal. Young men are going to go, well, hang on a minute, why am I doing the approaching? Why do I have to be better at this? Why do I have
to come up with the banter? Why do I have to be the funny one? Why do I have to charm her?
Oh, there's nothing worse than dealing with a girl who just can't throw good chat back. You might be throwing down some mad banter, and it's just all going over her head. 30 seconds out, I'll be, no, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah, she's done you a favor, because I said
exactly.
this to Marra, and I had a little night, and it was like I said to you, it's like if a girl, like I would say, I would do this. My lines were things I would walk up and say, you know, oh, look, I understand your choice to wear those shoes with that dress, but, you know, I'm not sure it's working. And this is what I recommend you do next time. You know, and it's so in your face and arrogant that some girls will either react and laugh and think that that's funny. And the ones that get upset and uptight, that's not the, it's a filter.
Yeah. Polarization. And it works. It's, to me, that's the most effective way of dating, is you be polarizing. You're either going to win someone over or push someone away. And the people you push away are going to be the ones who aren't suited to get along with you in the first place.
Yeah. I honestly, like, when you told me that the other night, I was just chuckling to myself. Like, I can just imagine some guy walking up to me saying that.
Yeah. Well, I've always thought, and let's ask the dating coach, but I've always thought that to go up to a woman and give her a compliment, oh, you look so nice, oh, you've got such pretty eyes, it's so fucking lame. It requires no imagination whatsoever. It is the easiest thing to do. And I know some women are susceptible to that, and it probably works, and I'm sure there's probably pickup artists that will tell you that it works. But to me, it's so unoriginal. It doesn't require thought. It doesn't require a sense of humor. I think it's so lame, and I think coming up with something interesting and that it's about her. Like, if you can like talk about her hair or something, or you know what color that is, you know, that you've seen the dye in her hair or whatever it is, that you can make it specific to her, and she goes, how the fuck did he notice that?
Yeah, I actually wrote an article on this couple years ago called The Art of the Compliment. And it basically says that if you are going to give someone a compliment, it needs to be individualized and specific to her. Otherwise, it's just going to come across as generic and boring as shit, and she's not going to feel appreciated at all.
Maybe I should do this for a job. I worked all this shit out by myself.
I like how your pucker on your chest is too much of a generalization.
Well, like from a woman's perspective, like if a guy comes up, it's like, oh, you look really nice tonight or something, and it's just one of those generic things. That's just the perfect opportunity for me to go, oh, thank you, and walk away. Yeah. Whereas if you say something really smart-assy, that makes me laugh. That makes me want to stand around and talk to you a little bit more, you know?
Okay, so I think we've sidetracked a little bit. Where were we before?
Keep me on track, but apparently if I let you guys go off on your own devices, you just do it anyway.
Yeah, we're probably worse than you tonight. We were looking at the Safe Schools program curriculum before I interrupted you on page 72, I think you mentioned it was.
Yeah, the where to go for help for domestic violence.
Yeah, what are the numbers on men's shelters in Australia? Because I actually haven't looked into that yet.
I've looked and I can't find any, but I could just be missing them.
I think I know of one, but here's something that's related. That Malcolm Turnbull came out last year with $100 million allocated to addressing domestic violence, which Malcolm Turnbull says is violence against women. Thank you, Malcolm. Now, within that $100 million, he allocated to men, and so
how much?
Two out of the 100 million went to men.
Christ.
Yeah, but don't get too excited yet. You know what that 2 million was? The 2 million,
men's behavioural.
Yes, it was a hotline to call if you felt like you were going to be violent.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, I'm not.
It's out there. While you guys talk, I'm going to find it. I've used it in a couple of videos.
Yeah, I've used it in video of mine. And not only, and I told Marra this the other night, which I didn't know, but this is on I sent Marra the video, so she's got the link. It's a interview with Bettina Arndt. And if you're not familiar with her, you should read her stuff. She's very good on Bettina Arndt, awesome. And she was with Beattie and Reith. They have a show on Tuesday or Wednesday nights, and 17 minutes of her talking about domestic violence. And they're Beattie's a fucking idiot. Peter Reith is actually sit there and he's interested. He hasn't heard this stuff before. And she comes out with a story that says that, if you're a man and you call up a domestic violence hotline and say you've been abused, now they won't, some will just tell you to go away, but the ones that don't, this is what they're required to do by law. They have to get your details. They then have to call the police. The police then have to call his abusive one and confirm the story. Right?
See, this is all from the Duluth model, isn't it?
But I mean, this is like he's the abused, right? He's the one being abused. And so think about if it's a woman. Now, if a woman rings a hotline, the first thing they're going to protect her anonymity straight away. They're not going to go to the partner and ask him, "Are you actually beaten on this woman?" So if it's a man, they actually have to call the police, and the police have to call that house and ask that woman, "Are you abusing your husband or partner or whatever?" Because the assumption is, as you said in the Duluth model, the assumption is that he's the violent one.
Yeah.
Heck, this is stunning.
Here's the domestic and family violence helpline for Western Australia. You guys can see that on the screen, at the moment.
Yeah. I've heard
it.
And on where I'm pointing on the right-hand side here, Men's Line Australia, support for men concerned about their own violent behaviour.
Yeah, that looks a lot.
So, fucking hell.
Yeah, I brought this up in my Mission Australia video. It's shocking. But I was talking to my partner today about what Independent Man was just saying about the having to contact the police and everything like that. And yeah, if we can work out a way where we can test that theory without actually having the police call me asking me if I'm beating my partner, we'll probably test that and just see if how accurate that is, because it would be good to actually have have them try and get his information for that purpose. I
think you just got to be careful about making a false report and all that kind of stuff. It could get you in trouble.
I know, and that's one thing that but I'd be very interested to see what happens as well, because that's another reason as well. I don't want the police calling me in general, but I also don't want the police getting a false report that I'm abusing my partner. So but I think that needs to be demonstrated if they are doing that as well. I think people need to see that happens.
Maybe you should just stare at your partner and actually commit domestic abuse and then call them, so it won't be a false report.
I'll also ask him on a date that he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
I'll ask him to go to see a rom-com with me or something.
Yeah.
Now, this program also perpetuates the 1 in 5 sexual assault myth, and I pulled up the data on that from which one is it? God, I got way too many tabs open right now. This is so the crime and actually no, it's ABS. So according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 94 in 100,000 expect.
Oh, he's gone again.
We've lost him again.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. He's got 8-bit internet as well, apparently.
It might be all those tabs that he's got open.
Possibly.
Yeah, dude, you're completely gone again.
Yep.
I think what he was going to say was 94. The usual way that they report these things is per 100,000.
Yeah.
So it's 94 per 100,000. And that's probably, I would estimate, in a 12-month period. 12-month period. But I mean, that study about the 1 in 5. Now, do you guys know some of the details about the 1 in 4, the 1 in 5? Because that was basically done on what we would call a TAFE campus.
Yeah.
City campus. So what you had there was you had a non-representative sample of people. So straight off the bat, that you couldn't extrapolate that study to all universities in America, because
No.
if you're talking about one of those colleges, you've got students, you've got people in their 40s, you've got a much higher proportion of people who've been in jail, for example, attending those type of colleges. And then,
one of the main questions that came out in that 1 in 3 survey in America was, have you ever had sex that you later regretted?
Yeah, and then they counted that.
Classified as rape. Fuck, I've had sex that I've regretted.
Yeah, like
I think that's most of my sex.
Yeah. Is my audio okay again?
Yeah.
No, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sweet. Yeah, and the other thing that they were talking about in this study is drunk sex is rape. That's like most of the sex that I have.
That's in the curriculum as well.
If I wank off when I'm drunk, is that sort of
you're raping
self-rape?
yourself? Yeah.
Yes, you are. You're a piece of shit, and you should go to prison.
But
cool.
like, that's on page 123 of the curriculum. Like the rest of the page, I don't really have an issue with. It's like, are you old enough? And it has, the ages of legal consent and stuff. And then there's, what you need to know about consent. And there's 3 things that you're supposed to keep in mind. And 2 of them I don't have an issue with. One is, are they the right age? Which, fair enough. The third one is, are they mentally and physically able? So do they have the mental ability to make decisions and the physical ability to communicate their desires?
Yeah, but what about retards?
What
about retards?
Can a retard give consent?
Can a Down syndrome person give consent?
Maybe to another Down syndrome person. I don't know.
Aren't you guys familiar with Steel Panther's bonus track, Handicap Slut?
No, I haven't heard that one.
No.
Oh, mate. Yeah, you have to hear that. Full track, and it's basically, the chorus goes something like, she's my handicap slut. Her computer does the talking. She's my handicap slut. It's like fucking Stephen Hawking. And there's lines in it like, disabled bitches still really want to get laid. And,
fuck.
I love Steel Panther. They always crack me up.
Yeah. I've got an autographed guitar, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Marra, what was the rest of them?
Sorry. So the third one, and this is the one I have a problem with. So there are 3 things a person must be before they give consent. The second one is sober. If someone, and it's not just saying like, drunk to the point of being incapacitated. It's just if someone is drunk, stoned, or out of it, their ability to make decisions is impaired. So they're not really able to give consent.
Well, that begs the question.
Which means I have been raped so many times it's impossible to count because I've had so much drunken sex. It's insane.
Yeah, like I've woken up to someone going, who the fuck are you and what are you doing in my bed naked? Not knowing their name. Does that mean I've been raped?
Yep.
And the shirking of personal responsibility is one of the main issues, I think, there.
Well, in Canada, at least here, we don't have the madness that they have in Canada, which is in Canada, if you were both drunk and there's a claim of sexual assault, the onus is on the man to prove that he got consent. This is a legal standard in Canada.
Christ.
So if you're in Canada, do not ever fuck if you are drunk. I mean, you are really risking.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Justin Trudeau. What a man he's been.
Oh, God.
He's such a smarmy. Ugh.
Yeah, he is a one giant virtue signal. That's all he is.
He's the Canadian version of Waleed Ali.
Oh, God. I can't stand Waleed.
I've done a few videos on him. He's such a fuckwit.
You know what the worst thing is? He got given a Voltaire Award this year. He got given
he won a Logie as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he got a Logie.
Gold Logie.
If you want to feel good about Waleed Ali, just go back, go on YouTube and find the clip where Christopher Hitchens fucking assassinates him on Q&A.
Mentioned that. I forgot to.
6 or 7 years ago. It's fucking beautiful.
Well, I know my partner's listening, so sweetie, can you please find that and play it for me when you get home? Thank you.
Now, have you guys seen the video of Ros Ward basically admitting that the Safe Schools program was not about everyone, and that it was
No, I heard the audio, but I haven't seen the video. Have you got a copy of it?
Yeah, well, the audio is actually pretty bad, but you know, with my sort of semi-engineering skills, I sort of had a go at fixing up the audio, but I also put some captions underneath, so you can actually read what she says. It only goes for about 20 seconds. Do you want me to throw it on?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the audio will actually play. I've set it up so my system audio will play through.
Okay. Just before you do that, 8-Bit, make sure you click on Gary's little picture in the Hangout. Yep.
Yeah, just give me a second. Let me find it. I think I put it in my videos.
We'll just wait here awkwardly.
Yeah, just talk about yourself for a moment.
How about that weather?
I was about to say, how about that local sports team?
How about that fag Gary?
I know, right?
Wow, what a cunt.
Yeah,
His last name is really phonetically misleading. He's not that awesome at all.
No,
can't even spell it right.
Well, in our previous streams, every time I say I'm going outside for a cigarette, typically India goes, "I've got just like the smallest cock," and that. A little bit of a running joke we've got with our streams. Somebody takes off for a minute. So just all right. So screen share. Here we go. Entire screen. Oh, get that out of my way. I can't see it if you guys can see my screen, right?
So we've got really explicit visible cues that are very clearly about gender and sexual diversity. So we think very specific posters work really well. Very specific messages from school leadership. Very specific things written in your school newsletter. That Safe Schools Coalition is about supporting gender and sexual diversity. Not about celebrating diversity, not about stopping bullying, about gender and sexual diversity, about same-sex attracted, about being transgender, about being lesbian, gay, bisexual, say the words, transgender, intersex. Not just being nice to everyone, everyone's great.
So that's her basically admitting that it's not about, you know, anti-bullying and being nice to everyone, and that was like from a leaked. That's from a Safe Schools symposium held in 2015, where they did, where somebody from the Safe Schools program recorded it surreptitiously.
I've read the Communist Manifesto, and I'm about halfway through Das Kapital by Karl Marx, and it really is just the bourgeoisie versus proletarians. Like Ros Ward just sees the world through a completely different lens.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this I guess cultural Marxism is a kind of redundant term. It's just Marxism, really.
Yeah, exactly.
They failed through the workers' revolution, so they're going after the education system. That's all.
And the thing is, Marxism lost the war against capitalism.
Yeah. And it's still losing it. I mean, is anybody watching the slow motion train wreck that is Venezuela right now, where people are going out in the streets and hunting wild dogs for food?
Oh,
yeah,
God.
and they've got gulags now as well.
Well, one thing I do want to say about this, and I think I mentioned it like in almost every stream that I've been on lately, but I have to promote it as much as I can. If you have a daughter, make sure like you make her watch My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, because they have a 2-parter episode bashing cultural Marxism for starters. Like the whole show is is really against all of this crazy crap, and we all know that kids love wanting to emulate their favorite characters and also get a lot of their thoughts and stuff from things they've seen on TV. So if you have a daughter, My Little Pony, dead set, make them watch it.
And then straight after that, make them watch South Park.
Yes,
or Animal Farm.
Yep, because South Park will kick the political correctness right out of them.
Have you guys read Animal Farm or
Yes.
1984?
Yeah,
I
I've
haven't read
both of them,
1984 yet. I really need to read that, but I've read Animal Farm.
1984 is probably my favorite one, but like, it's not that I necessarily think we will end up in 1984 style culture, but little bit by little bit, we do seem to be slowly heading in that direction, and it really fucking concerns me because no one seems to be speaking up against it.
Oh, there is. I mean, I think if you guys want to see where ground zero of this battle is right now, it's in Canada, and it's with that guy called Jordan Peterson, and he is chance that this guy might go to jail because he refuses to say Z and Z. Okay?
Yeah.
This is where we're at. I mean, this guy, by the way, this is no quack. This is no just fucking some guy in some random shitty university. This is a guy who's a very, very well-respected PhD psychologist. And I implore you to go and watch what he says online. He's been on various shows. He's very, very smart. He's very precise about what he talks about. He always refers to evidence and studies. And this guy's got a lot of integrity. And this is ground zero. That we're at a stage now where if you refuse to call someone by their preferred pronoun, you could go to jail or at the very least lose your job.
And I see this indoctrination through the safe schools program as well, sort of getting back to that again and what 8-Bit brought up about 1984. I can see a lot of comparisons with the junior spies and 1984 and the whole idea of the indoctrination of the children.
Like that scene where the kids dobbed in their parents for wrong thing.
Yeah. And what Indy was saying about, you can't say this and you can't say that. And it's the young people coming out of universities. They're the ones that are basically saying this. It is so Orwellian.
And have you seen the new one, this is Minority Report, thought crime conviction? Have you seen the new one, which is unconscious bias now? Yeah. Have you heard about this?
What?
So you can go online and there's a test you can take. Some Harvard professor developed it. And in fairness to her, now it shows you pictures of like black people and white people, and you have to associate the pictures with like criminals or good people or whatever. And it shows that basically, and it's really rapid fire. And what it shows is that basically, you'll more quickly associate, say, a black face with example. So this demonstrates some unconscious bias on your behalf. Now, of course, the retards have picked this up and just ran with it as another reason why white people are horribly racist. But here's the problem. Like, there's actually no demonstrable link between unconscious bias and action. So, I mean, because that's what really matters. It doesn't really matter. We all have certain biases against certain people, probably because of the experiences we've had. But if you don't act on those, and a lot of living in a civil society is restraining your actions regardless of what you think. And so this is a non-problem, but this is their latest attempt. You're literally being, listen to the word, it's unconscious bias, which means you don't even know that you're doing it.
Yeah, my understanding
they want to convict you of it.
That, though, is why they're trying to prove unconscious bias, is because what they actually want to do is basically they're trying to put forward an argument that for things like sleep therapy and feeding subliminal imagery into you in your sleep to socially engineer you to undo this unconscious bias that they've managed to prove.
See, I've got a bit of a funny story about this Harvard test. Someone on my Facebook basically posted a virtue signal about some guy in America having committed rape, only getting 6 months prison, and that's racism and...
Oh, yeah, Brock Turner.
Yeah, Brock Turner. So I just basically shit posted something along the lines of racism isn't everywhere, sexism isn't everywhere, and a couple people just started hurling abuse at me. And one of the girls sent me the Harvard unconscious bias test and said, do this and prove that you're not biased. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I actually don't mind seeing what my results are. Now, I was expecting to be obviously biased towards white people. Turns out I'm biased towards black people. And I posted the results and everyone fucking lost their shit. Rather than turning around and saying, oh, okay, you're not racist, that's good. They were claiming that I somehow lied in this test and changed my results. I was just like, I'm believable.
Yeah, that you can't win. And that's how feminists,
exactly.
operate. You will never be able to win. If, like if a woman like Marra cannot win because, women will protest against men and say, you're not a woman, you don't understand. And then someone like Marra comes along and they just say, well, it's internalized misogyny. She doesn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Actually, just one interesting point on Brock Turner. I know that this is a bit off topic, but like initially I had lost my shit. Like I was pissed off that he only got 6 months in a county jail as opposed to a prison for what, I thought he probably should have gotten, 2 years in prison with parole after 1 or something. I don't know. But his sentence was actually much harsher than what he deserves, I think, because while the jail term itself was quite lenient, what the judge did to balance that off, because I know why the judge did it. It was because of, his, like, he was a very pretty boy. He was gonna get fucking destroyed in prison. He has to register as the worst type of sex offender every 6 months. And in where he lives in a lot of other states in America as well, if you are that, like a type 3 or whatever it is, whatever the worst one is, if you are that level of sex offender, when you register, you have 1 week to then go and hang up all these flyers, put pamphlets in all your neighbors' letterboxes with your picture, your name, your address, what you did.
Jesus Christ.
Every 6 months, he has to go and hand out the "I'm a rapist" flyers.
But this is interesting, though, because now I of course I don't defend rapists, but why is this crime so unbelievably unforgiving? For example, like
a murderer doesn't have to do that.
An ex-murderer does not have to come out of prison and then go around and put leaflets in people's boxes and say, I murdered someone in 1997 and I'm living in your area now. I mean, why do we treat it like that? Why?
Well, I'm so glad that we don't have that here. And like a lot of people say, they want a public register for child sex offenders. And stuff
Darren
like
Hinch. That's all Darren Hinch cares about.
I don't want that. Like, I would be living in because if I knew that it was there, I wouldn't be able to help but look at it. And then I would be like, holy shit, there's 2 streets away from me. I have to move. And I would be spending the rest of my life trying to move away from these people so my kid is nowhere near them.
Well, here's the thing. The last job I was at back in January before I quit. Now, there was a American girl I live with there. She lives in about an hour from Seattle, small town. And she showed me that she can go online where her home is and she can punch her address in and up pops all these pins of where sexual offenders live.
That would be the most terrifying way to live.
You can see where they are. So I wonder, but again, it's just the, look, maybe that is a legitimate thing. I don't know. But if you're going to do it for sex offenders, why aren't you doing it for murderers? I mean, why? I mean, maybe there's good evidence. Maybe there's good evidence that sexual assault people are more likely to reoffend than murderers. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see the data on that.
Yeah. I mean, pedophiles,
that's a mental illness as well, pedophilia.
What are the recidivist rates? I mean, because it just seems disproportionate sort of outrage in the same way that the whole domestic violence against women, it's just a disproportionate outrage industry that has no bearing on reality.
I mean, ideally, I'd love domestic violence to be 0, but that's just not realistic.
Well, everyone would love that, but yeah, exactly. And I made this point in another video, which was to say that this idea that domestic violence is an epidemic and that it's spread across society is like saying rainfall falls everywhere in Australia. But you have places like Tibooburra that get over 3,000 millimetres a year, and then you have places out in Churchill that get 50 millimetres a year. And there's a vast difference between those two places. One is getting inundated and flooded, and the other is basically in a constant drought. And that's the difference between living in a middle-class community and an Indigenous community.
See, what really pisses me off about this whole domestic violence thing is it's allegedly an epidemic when it's been virtually unchanged for the past 10 years. Whereas if you look at the suicide statistics, which I did a video on a couple of weeks ago, in the past 10 years, this was only released a few weeks ago by the ABS. Since 2016 to 2015, suicide rates in men have increased by 17%.
Oh, wow.
And in the past 12 months, 4.6%. So everyone's harping on about how bad domestic violence is, but no one's talking about why male suicide is going up. And I'm going to do another video on it. So.
I know the answer to why male suicide is on the rise. And it's, it really it's the feminist influence across society that's born out in the family court system. A guy called Leith Erickson, who's head or one of the guys in the Brotherhood of Fathers, and Pauline Hanson has come out and spoken about this. Now, the figure, I haven't got any accurate figures, but it's somewhere between 21 and 27 men per week are killing themselves because of family court problems and being disenfranchised and no contact with their children. Now, you've got a little bit over 2,000 men killing themselves in Australia each year. Now, if you take that 27 men per week and you multiply it by the amount of weeks there is, you've got 1,400 to 1,500 male suicides because of the family court system. They make up 3/4 of all male suicides.
Yeah.
Well, listen to this. In 2015, sorry, Andy, give me a sec. In 2015, suicide was the leading cause of death among young people 15 to 44 years of age. That's fucking scary.
It is.
Yeah, well, here's the numbers, and see, it's this just goes to show you the hypocrisy of feminism, right? So if one woman getting killed by her partner every week in Australia is a national emergency, let's forget about suicide for men for a second. Women, 735 women committed suicide last year in Australia. Okay, that's about 14 a week. About 14 women a week are committing suicide. 2 a day. And you know what it is for men? It's a day. It's 43 a week are committing suicide. And by the way, from 2006 to 2015, that 10-year period, the male suicide has gone up 41%. Female suicide has gone up 49%. So the increase in the number of women killing themselves is actually going up faster. Yeah. But men 10 years ago were 80% of all suicides. They're now 76% because more and more women are killing themselves.
You know what? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, and this is just conjecture on my end, but I wouldn't be surprised if feminism had something to do with that as well, because it's quite interesting, the correlation between the rise of feminism and how much more influence it has, and women's involvement in the workplace increasing, etc., with how dissatisfied women seem to be getting every single year, and how unhappy they are when surveyed every single year. And
yeah, I have heard that female happiness has been dropping since World War II, but I haven't actually seen the data on that, so I can't confirm it.
I got some of that.
Yeah, I might steal that off you again.
I've got fucking data for everything.
We need to do some data swapping.
There is actually there are some there are some surveys that show that women are about the same. It's not as easy as saying career women are less happy than married women. It's just not that simple. There's it's multi. For example, if a woman has a career and she has a supporting husband and they're middle class and they have enough income, then she might just be as happy as the woman that stays home. But the happiest women seem to be women who were stay-at-home women with a partner who had a good income, and she had three or four children. So it wasn't just one or two children, but the more kids they had, and they had this good provider, that they were the happiest.
Yeah.
And just go back to the suicide point. Now, what age group of women do you think kill themselves the most? Is it teenagers? Is it women in middle age, or is it old women? What age do you think it is?
I'm guessing the 30s and 40s, maybe 40s.
For women, it peaks at 45 to 49 because I'm looking at the graph now.
That's what it is. It's 42 to 49, and really the top three categories are 40 to 54 if you want to broaden it out.
Yeah.
Based on 2015 figures. So it's in that range where maybe you have put your life into a career. Maybe you got married, maybe it didn't work out. You didn't have kids. It's in this whole I'm regretting my life area. Male suicide peaks at around the same time as well. It's 40 to 49. Actually, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same as women. So I think it's this midlife crisis area. But the surprising thing is that women, when they get old, seem to not give a fuck. It really drops away when they get in their late 70s and 80s, but men still killing themselves pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at an interesting study. I haven't got it in front of me, but I've got it in my Excel document full of stats somewhere. Is that there's a direct correlation between levels of self-esteem and suicide rates. Now, once you get past that sort of 50-year-old peak where you've got quite low self-esteem, your self-esteem starts to increase again at 50, and that's when the rates start dropping as well. So if you look at the graph for self-esteem over lifespan and and compare that with age of deaths, it's like the exact same thing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So it kind of puts a pin in this idea that if you tell women that they're empowered and strong and wonderful, so that's message which has been foisted upon them for 20 years. So if you're a young woman 20 years ago and you're now in your 40s, well, that's your peak time for committing suicide. So just telling people that you're wonderful and strong doesn't seem to be working.
I'm gonna have to find this study. I read it the other day when I was doing research for my next video on suicide, but it basically said what the factors were involved in male suicide. I haven't got the data for female stuff, but it was basically that, we're putting massively high expectations on ourselves. Once we fail to achieve a goal, we put too much pressure on ourselves for that and all these sorts of factors. So I would assert that would be the exact same case with empowering women. Become a CEO. I don't really want to be, but it's a hard job to get to. Don't get to it. Feeling miserable. Hang myself.
Yeah. Well, also when you put that type of pressure on a woman, was Gary just talking?
Oh yeah, I was just going to. Got where I was going to go there. What were you saying, 8-bit? You were saying about the women can do it all narrative. Yeah. That puts a lot of pressure on them because and it's and no one can do it all. People have to compromise and sort of make decisions between family and career choices and how much time to spend at work and all of those things. And it's not fair on women for feminists to go, you can do it all.
Have you guys? There's been a couple of interviews now with Cassie J after the red pill. Now the most recent one is interviewing Cassie J's boyfriend, who had something to do with the production of the video. I think he works in that area, and they interviewed him for 20 minutes, and he talks about this is probably the most interesting interview I've seen, more interesting than the interviews with her, because he talks about what she was like. Because remember, she was a staunch feminist, and she had all these expectations. And when you listen to what he says, and she agrees with him, she's not denying anything he says. What a cunt this woman!
Yeah.
I mean, you just go like you cannot understand how a man would stay with this type of person. It's unbelievable. This guy was breaking his back 16 hours a day, he was saying, 5 days a week, and coming home and then getting berated because he wasn't doing 50% of the housework. Meanwhile, she didn't work and she was off pursuing a career as a documentary maker, living off. He bought all the food, and this is the way he was treated. And this man has an unbelievable amount of patience. And he goes into his background is that he grew up in California, in like Berkeley, which is the center of fucking feminism, ground zero. And he had dated feminist women all his life, and he was used to being treated like a piece of shit.
I wonder if this is what Steve Shives goes through.
I think that's not only like, I was trying to link this back to this idea of the expectations on women, that you got to be a career woman and you got to have the kids and everything. Yeah. But there's also these expectations of these women of what their partner should be like. So their partner should be this unbelievably understanding person that's going to self-sacrifice himself for all your dreams. And I think that's a damaging set of expectations.
My only expectation, for the most part with my partner, is he lets me have a sleep in every so often.
Yeah, but it just, and as I've said, I made a video. You guys saw the Prager University video about extolling the virtues of marriage for men. Now, these guys have you guys seen that? The Prager University? Prager University makes some good videos. They are conservatives, in the old traditional conservatives, right? So they're trying to extol the virtues of marriage to men. And they're not wrong about any of their statistics at all. It's not misleading. But what they show is that men who are married work harder and more likely to get promoted, all these. And this is all true. They earn 20% more than their single counterparts. But what they don't address, of course, is, I earn 20% more, but I pay way more for these kids and this wife, and I'm afraid of, if I get divorced, I lose half of everything and I have to pay maintenance, and and I don't get to see the kids and all this kind of stuff. But I took that video. You've got that. And then I went and had a look at the current trends about what young men and women expect. And this is a Pew Research survey. And what it showed is that the expectations of women, what they want, what's important to them in life, their expectations of their partners are way higher than men's expectations of women. And you have this dichotomy where you have their expectations are going up. Men's expectations are round about the same. At the same time, women are more educated. They're getting better jobs. They're earning the same amount of money, if not more. But their expectations are growing in terms of, to them, is a man with a good job and good money.
Yeah.
And so the expectations of women are just getting so far removed from the reality of what men are that you're just going to end up with less people getting together.
Internet dating has actually made it significantly worse as well, because you've got the rise of Tinder, which is fucking buyer's market, or seller's market for that matter, if you want to call it that. And it's just so superficial. And I mean, a chick can be on a date with a guy, and if it's not going well, she can literally walk into the bathroom, get on Tinder, and start finding a new one. So it's just no surprise to me that people are just getting worse and worse at this.
So how long have you been...
Which is great for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long have you been doing what you're doing?
Since January 26th, 2010. So coming up 7 years.
And so over that time, have you seen changes? Is that long enough time to have seen changes in men's attitudes or women's attitudes? Or?
I think with the internet dating, I've seen attitudes change, but within the face-to-face stuff, not really, to be brutally honest. What I have seen a change in is they're tending to get a little less likely to want to improve. Whether my marketing has changed or not, might be a factor, but I have seen a drop in revenue over the past 10 years, but I've also seen the industry change for the better. So when I first started, most guys out there were your typical pickup artist guys teaching lines, routines, and all that sort of bullshit. But it has evolved. So now almost everyone in the industry, with the exception of a few, are teaching honesty, self-esteem, vulnerability, and all that sort of stuff.
Like being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I don't know if you know people that do what you do who've been doing it for 20 years or longer. Like someone like Bettina Arndt has actually been doing it for that long. I'd like to hear what changes she's seen.
The problem is the people who have been doing it for a really long time are the ones who are the biggest pieces of shit. So guys like Ross Jeffries is like, he's 70-something years old, and he's still just, the only thing he cares about is, and I quote, getting pussy. So he's not really smart enough to be able to make a good analysis of it.
Right. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Hey, Gaz, your better half is chiming in the chat again. When are you going to get her on the mic?
Oh, well, I only asked her about 4 times today if she wanted to come in, because she actually knows quite a bit about safe schools, and she's quite well read up on it. But, she's bashful.
Gary, see, I think this what you're doing right now, Gaz, this is domestic violence. What you're doing, and it's on tape.
Yeah, you're silencing her.
Yep.
So, Marra, you don't need to make that false call anymore. We just need Mrs. Awesome to make it.
I'm the victim. You see, I've offered 4 times for her to come into the chat, and she won't. And then all of a sudden, I'm being blamed for silencing her. I'm the perpetrator.
Mrs. Awesome, how dare you?
You should be ashamed.
Another one about when we got off. If we go back, 8-Bit was talking about misrepresenting statistics in this whole safe schools bullshit.
Domestic violence and stuff.
And look at the little kids one, the infants one, and on one of the first pages it says something like 4% of it actually says, why do we have this program about trans kids? And it's like, because 4% of kids are trans or non-binary. And so I go to the footnote. It's a footnote to a study that was done in New Zealand, and if you go to that study, it says 1% of people. It says 96% of people identified as heterosexual, 1% identified as transgender, and 3% said they didn't know. 3% did not say they're non-binary, because those 3% probably didn't even know what the fuck non-binary was. But see, when you read the safe schools thing, it's a big fat number up there. 4% of people are trans, and then in small writing, non-binary. It's like really misleading you. They're trying to make this issue out like this is affecting hundreds of kids. It probably isn't. There's probably schools out there that don't have a single trans kid.
No, I didn't meet a single trans person until I was like 23.
Right.
Or something like that. Like, I hadn't met a single trans person until then.
Yeah, I've
That's
probably
because
met
they were
5.
too scared to come out of the closet.
It made me ask, how old are you? 23?
Pardon?
I said, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 27.
Well, in the I think it's the DSM-5. It says it is estimated that about 0.005% to 0.14% of males and even less females would be diagnosed with gender dysphoria based on current diagnostic criteria. So it is a very, very small number.
Yeah, 1% is way over the mark. 1% is way over the estimate.
Huge.
I mean, I saw a Pew Research poll that said 3.8% of the US population are either gay, lesbian, trans, sexual. Like all of those combined only make up less than 4%. So they deliberately inflate these statistics like this is it's an epidemic like domestic violence. It's not. It's a tiny number of kids.
Yeah, see, I really want to believe that they're doing this with good intentions and, they're just making mistakes. But the more you look into it, the more obvious it becomes that this is intentional lying.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, well, the road to hell is paved with the good intentions. And I do think that a lot of the people involved in doing all of this stuff truly believe that they are doing the right thing. And if they have to tell a couple of little fibs here and there, so be it. But what they're doing is fucking disgusting. Like I said, it's child abuse. Nothing like it is. You can't justify it.
And the long-term consequences from this are just going to be incredible. I mean, there's going to be a generation of people with no self-esteem, no ability to deal with reality, needing safe spaces. Everyone's a victim. Suicide rates are going to go up, not down.
Yeah, and I can see DV rates actually increasing as a result because now, again, completely anecdotal, but my best friend, one of her family members, was dating this guy, right, who was so, already so friggin' cucked, it was insane. And she used to actually intentionally hit him, push him, smack him, scream at him, whatever, because she was so frustrated that he wasn't in any way, shape, or form masculine. And then one day he's like this wasn't like he didn't snap to his most extreme at this point yet, but I think he snapped and just pushed her back up against the wall and held her there with his arm against at her throat because she'd been beating the crap out of him. And then they had really amazing sex because she's like, oh my god, he's a man.
It's funny how that works.
But then he felt so guilty afterwards that he would become even more beta, and she would push him even harder and harder and harder until one day he just completely snapped and decked her. And
have you seen Bill Burr's sketch on No Reason to Hit a Woman?
Oh
No.
yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's like he's I can think of 30. But that's exactly right. I mean, this is there's no excuse to hit a woman. People just say this like Malcolm Turnbull says that thing where he says, not all violence starts with disrespect, but I've got that wrong. You know this thing he says where I've got it wrong. All violence starts with disrespecting. Well, no, it doesn't, because if you're defending yourself from a psycho, that's not disrespect. Okay. There's no reason to hit a woman. Look, if a woman walks up to you in the middle of the street and kicks you fair in the balls, I can tell you that if I can catch her, she will not be standing up. All right? She is going.
Well, it's like what I told you that my dad used to tell me when I was growing up. It was like, if a guy ever hits you, I'll kick his ass, unless you hit him first, in which case you deserved it. So don't come crying.
What a champion.
Should be told that. Yeah. I mean, this idea that women why we want equality, yet we're special snowflakes. No, you can't have it both ways. You want equality.
See, I actually think that this whole concept of, we must protect the women's attitude, I think it has to be in our biology. As men, it's imperative that we look after women. So
Absolutely.
I think, almost feminism is men's fault, I guess, in some respects.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it. I mean, you protecting your women meant the survival of your tribe at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
And people would, and you go back to the Nordic, what the fuck were they? sorry,
The
the Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just they would. I mean, where does pillage and rape come from? You go in, you kill all the men, and you take the women. I mean, this is ingrained in us for centuries. I mean, if you want to procreate and you want your tribe to live on, you have to protect the women. That's why I think you've seen that tweet by now where they tweeted out, men are the biggest threat to women or something.
Yeah.
It's like men are the biggest protectors of women that they've ever been. If men didn't protect women, species, we'd all be gone. Men could turn on women tomorrow and just end it if we wanted to, but we don't. We're fucking not. We're not nihilists. Not most of us.
Yeah, it's utterly ridiculous how they think that the entirety of society is set up to benefit men and disenfranchise women, where it's like literally all women have to do is, ask. It's like, we want equal pay. Okay, here you go. Here's a bill. You've got equal pay. We want to vote. Okay, you can vote. Oh, we want domestic violence shelters. Okay, well, you've got them. Like, everything that women want, women get. And
yeah,
and this whole hashtag kill all men type mentality from feminists, like, what do they want to achieve from that? If there were no men in society, we're done in what, 60, 70 years?
No, because what they would do, right, they would, I guess, make a nice big frozen sperm bank thing, and then...
Yeah, or they do sort of like animal husbandry. They'd keep a few men around and breed, they'd have a breeding program.
Yeah.
And,
they do the whole Julie Bindle thing where they keep them in a camp and...
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a child now.
I think your child is also complaining about this topic.
I think so.
Yeah, I think she just said she hates the Safe Schools program. That's what I heard.
Well, you're a smart kid, aren't you, Bubby?
I just can't wait till they come out with something for kids that age. They come around to your house.
Terrify me.
They just hold up images of men beating women to the babies when they're born. When they first come out, here. Okay, no, you can't hold your child yet. We've got to show it a few pictures first.
We need to indoctrinate it first.
Yeah, your child needs to show consent. We just had a comment in the chat from Magnificent Bastard saying, "You're making the mistake of believing feminists understand the basic concept of consequences," which I think is pretty accurate. Yeah. Yep. Well said.
Yes. Responsibility for your actions.
And this is why he's magnificent. He makes excellent points.
And it's also why he's a bastard, because he's speaking out against feminism.
Exactly.
I just love that his avatar's Paul Keating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it? I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Dude, my respect for you has just gone way up.
Paul Keating is just the you go back and watch old videos of him shredding Peter Costello.
He's so funny.
It's just fucking unbelievable. It's just such a pity that the Labor Party has turned into a pile of dog shit.
Oh, yeah.
Now, both parties have turned into a pile of dog shit.
Yeah, actually, my partner told me today, apparently Abbott wants to introduce into just the Liberal Party itself. He was putting forward a bill or proposition, whatever the fuck it's called internally, where the leader is chosen in the same way that the Republican Party chooses its presidential candidate and stuff. All the members can
someone's bitter.
vote. Oh, well, it would work. Most Liberals hate Turnbull.
Well, there's two factions there. You've got your Conservatives, which don't like, and Turnbull is a populist centrist who thought that he could win over half the Labor Party, right? But he can't. If he wants to be the leader of the Liberal Party, he can't sell out that much of liberal values.
Yeah.
When I say liberal to people who, if they're American listening to this, it doesn't mean what your version of liberal means. But he just can't do that. He's a man caught between a rock and a hard place, where half of his party doesn't believe in global warming, are against gay marriage, but he's for those things.
Yeah.
See, as far as the gay marriage thing goes, it's beyond me why it's just not in law. I mean, marry a fucking doorknob for all I give a shit. It makes no difference.
That's exactly my attitude. But the only problem I do have is the cram down of, as you've seen in the United States, where because they're Christian nut jobs, got fined $400,000 because they won't bake a cake for a lesbian wedding. Now
I know that's wrong.
To me, that's unconstitutional, because isn't that free speech?
No,
exactly.
No, because it's against the Anti-Discrimination Act.
Oh, fuck.
It should be. It should be in the United States, where you have an amendment specifically to protect free speech. But this is what's so sad about the United States. I mean, Australia doesn't have any such amendments, right?
No.
Our constitution is just a delegation of powers.
Yes, we've always been weak on. That's why a republic is a good idea. But they haven't. That's what's so sad about America, to watch them sell out their own fucking founding principles, which are really, really good. I mean, they got this really, really right from the
they're
get-go.
very libertarian as far as their constitution goes.
But they've completely fucked it. And so you have that situation where, look, you and I would all probably agree on this stream that is homophobic behavior, right? But I believe that your right to be homophobic is more important than someone else cramming down at the point of a gun, because that's what laws are at the end of the day, their morals on you. I don't think that helps change people's minds, and I think it's a fundamental violation of freedoms.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's protected by free speech, then it's in the public arena, so it can be criticized and argued. And if it's a shit idea, it can be shot down in public, so people's minds aren't changed on that issue. Like, this is what I like about David Leinhelm. I think his biggest downfall was just his execution on explaining his ideas aren't particularly great.
No. But yeah, he's got it right. He's committed to the fundamentals of freedom, that the government should be small and stay the fuck out of my life. Because, you take that example, let's say in Australia, here somewhere in Australia, we passed the law, gay marriage, blah, blah, blah. Lesbians are going to get married. They go into a bakery and someone says, look, we just have these religious beliefs and we don't bake cake. We think marriage is a man and a woman, and we don't bake cakes for lesbians. All right. Now,
Section 18C coming at you.
Absolutely. Yeah. But here's the thing. This is why you don't need it, because especially in this day and age. So that lesbian couple goes and tells all their friends, don't go to that bakery. Not only that, most straight people in Australia will now boycott that bakery.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That bakery is going to find out that their sales are down 60% in a fucking week. And I bet you they get really fucking LGBTI conscious.
Yeah.
That starts to threaten their
business. You can always go to the gay baker. It's not like there isn't the gay baker to go to.
Yeah.
And honestly as well, like, I mean, I think it would be a bit different if, we'll use the bakery example, like if they had a monopoly on the market or whatever, like if you only lived, just say like you've lived out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and there was only one bakery within like a 4-hour drive in any direction. It would be kind of cunty to not...
and that whole bakery would never see another customer.
Yeah, and I would expect people to cause a massive amount of uproar about that. But like when you live in suburbia, you literally walk 5 minutes and you've passed 3 more bakeries.
Yeah.
You go to Melbourne, if you got a homophobic coffee shop, you need to walk about 5 meters.
Yeah. Like, it's like, just move on. Like, why are you suing these people? Just go find another fucking bakery.
It's so dumb, because you could, if you're going to discriminate on homosexuality, what if someone decided to open up a coffee shop or a bakery and said, we don't serve people who believe in climate change, or who believe in I don't know, fucking carbon taxes, or just something random. It's the same principle. It doesn't matter.
We don't serve Green Party members.
I'd be for that one.
Oh, yeah, I'd go to that shop, 100%.
Yeah.
In the I heard on one of your videos that you were going to make a video on how we go about changing the policies within the Safe Schools program. Is that right, or did I mishear that?
Yes, and I did the subsequent video. What did I say? I said I was just talking about empowering you, educate yourself, know what's in it, because I think a lot of parents just trust their schools that they're doing the right thing. And I mean, and years ago, you never had to worry about on your kids because it was left to parents essentially. But the other thing I was going to do, and I've opened my mouth to Marra already, but I'll do it live now, is that I'm actually in the process of constructing a website, and I'm calling it the Everyday Privilege Project. And I'm going to put up there all the statistics about male violence, incarceration rates, health outcomes, which I've done a lot of these videos anyway. And to make it a website, I'm going to say this is a resource to send your kids to rebut claims in the safe, respectful relationships program. So, for example, when they come out and say, when they start talking about unearned privileges that men have, you can say, oh yeah, it's an unearned privilege that I'm 3 times more likely to commit suicide, that I'm 15 times more likely to die in a workplace accident. I mean, just workplace accidents, you know, one woman dies every week from their partner, 3 men die on a workplace every week.
Yeah.
These kinds of things.
I've got a lot of data on this sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, why don't you, when I get round to this, and I'm not putting a timeline on it because I know what I'm like.
Honesty is the best policy.
I'll put stuff up. I'll send you the link and tell me what that's not that I haven't got.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. One of the things I've noticed is, at least with most normies, I guess in lack of a better word, is they just don't seem to care because they're of the attitude, well, none of this has affected me, and they don't realize, I guess, how it affects them. But yeah, it's very hard to change their minds because they're not interested, they don't give a shit. And I actually think that's the majority of the population.
Yeah, and they're busy, they've got lives, they've got mortgages to pay, they've got kids to get to school.
And it's in direct contradiction to that it's in direct contradiction to that whole instinct to protect the women, especially when it's saying, well, no, women don't need any more help, it's the men that need help now. It's like, well, you know.
But you've got, the idiot, what's the education minister in Victoria, that little short ass running around saying, we're not going to stand by while one woman dies every week in Australia.
Oh, yeah, the deflection is incredible.
It's just go back to the default virtue signal. That's it. And all the men, because how many of these men line up and wear these shirts and go on marches where it's like, stopping violence against women starts with men.
Yep, I take an oath to end men's violence against women.
Fucking Jesus, you brainwash.
I nearly put my back out from cringing so hard against that.
Stunning. Fucking stunning. Go watch the Tildia video about men painting their fingernails.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Fucking believable. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Sick.
Man up if you guys have been man up. Man up.
Yeah.
You've got the nail painting, get the boys to cry, and boys to sing themselves. Look, that's fine. But the nail painting, and I think that started with that guy that he went overseas. He found some child that had been trafficked, a little girl, sexually abused. Look, it's all great that he cares about all of that. But then when he comes back to, and she painted his nails while he was there, and so when he comes back to Australia, he now wears nail polish in support of her, and it's just the most virtue signaling thing I've ever seen.
But this just so makes me angry because we all have our own experiences that inform our lives. But how many of us are that fucking self-absorbed that we then go and think we have to inflict it on everybody else? Because I've had an emotional experience. This is exactly what that Morrison did. Dickhead of the Year, Australian.
Oh yeah, the former chief of defence.
Yeah. Now he had an experience where some woman and her mother came to see him, and she gave testimony about how she'd been sexually harassed in the workplace, and it was horrible. So now he's resolved to come out you know, he doesn't check the statistics. He doesn't know anything about domestic violence. He doesn't know anything about harassment. He doesn't know anything about psychology. But now he's taken it upon himself because he felt personally guilty that he was in charge of the army at this time, that he now has to make it his life's mission to go around being a virtue signaler.
Well, the worst part is what he's most frustrated against, and the thing that he's protesting about is saying, hey guys, you fucking spastic, you won Australian of the Year, you fuckwit. Use it to some good use, not hey guys. I mean, it's the most non-issue in the world.
Dumb fuckery.
I got a lot of friends who are in the Defence Force who have a lot of respect for him, but once he said that, they were all just like, what the fuck is wrong with this clown?
But did you see him the other day? There was a picture of him in the paper and he was wearing heels. Did you see that?
Oh,
No.
God.
It was this, you know, as we were just talking about.
Oh, was it like
Can
the
you
walking
screen share it?
shoes or something?
Yeah. So, you know, it's the same kind of thing where men, you know, put on those T-shirts and make a pledge and go for a walk. So he did this for the same kind of cause. And men dressing in high heels. And he's standing there with his photo of him in high heels. This guy is going to go down as one of the biggest laughing stocks ever.
Yeah, isn't he?
Yeah.
We really are just becoming Canada, aren't we?
Yeah, I think Canada is our litmus test.
Yeah.
I've got the photo here. It's fucking brilliant. He's holding a sign that says violence is not okay. Oh, isn't it, David? Thanks for telling us that, mate. I wouldn't have known. I just go around
Studies
beating
also
people.
show water is still
What kind
wet.
of violence?
Oh, God.
Because trying to get back to the school thing, do you want to know what they're teaching as violence?
What?
This is on page 26 of the curriculum. It's introducing gender-based violence. As a whole, like this is like the procedure. It's step 3. It's like, as a class, brainstorm a list of acts at school that are perceived as violent by students. Or like alternatively, present them with a broad definition such as any hurtful or unwanted behavior perpetrated upon an individual by another person or persons, which includes physical, psychological, sexual, social, financial, spiritual, and emotional violence.
Hang on, spiritual violence. What the fuck is spiritual violence?
So basically the entirety of human behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. Spiritual.
Anything
My God hates you.
Anything hurtful on a social level is now violence. So just say smelly Frank comes over and wants to play with all, like, you know, the popular girls, and they go, ill Frank, you smell, go away. That's violence.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I noticed about you know, it's a sort of an extension of the pay gap myth thing where they tie this financial violence. In other words, you know, it's like this argument of refusing to support me, saying that I have to be independent and get a job and look after myself is violence against me.
Oh, fuck off.
Indy.
Yeah.
I think you've got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I sharing it?
Yep.
Can you see the cuck?
Holy shit. What a faggot.
Let's get a close-up of this fag. Oh, look at those.
Oh, God.
You fucking dickhead.
Get a nice
Lock it onto his picture, mate. Lock it onto his picture.
Hey?
Just click on Indy's.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Has it not worked?
Oh, no,
click it.
within the Hangout, I think we have to manually do it ourselves.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But, you know, he didn't even get a nice pair of heels. They make men's size heels for trannies, and could have at least gotten those, because...
Jeez, he didn't paint his toenails either. Pick up your game, mate.
He is an absolute embarrassment.
Oh, isn't he?
An embarrassment. This is Australian of the Year. You fucking clown.
That is embarrassing.
And to be the leader of our defence force.
It's like he's wearing the shoes, right? And then he's holding up the, for God's sake, please don't fucking bash me sign.
And sorry, I just found as well, because I had also tabbed off the resources linked to that section of the curriculum, like that procedure thing. They've got examples, right, that they want, that these are all examples of harassment and violence in schools. Example, it's on page 68, but example B is, since Kim broke up with her boyfriend Tom, her friends don't ask her to hang out anymore. They blame her, but she just didn't feel close to him anymore. Her friends hang out with Tom and his friends at school, and she is left on her own.
Yeah.
This is violence and harassment, apparently. This is what they get.
Wow.
They're not even
Talk about moving the goalpost.
I know,
Yeah.
like, apparently not even, like, just passively not liking someone is now violence and harassment.
And do you notice, Marra, is that page you're reading from, is that like there's a bunch of different scenarios like that?
Yeah, A to
Because
P.
maybe that's a different one, but there's another one where they give similar examples, right? And every single one of them, the female is the victim, and there's only one of the scenarios where the male's a victim, and this scenario is, it's a little boy who's being held up by older girls for his lunch money every day.
Yeah, I think. Wait, no. There's a couple other. I think maybe. There's a couple other ones where it's about boys as well, but it's.
See the one because I'm looking at the same page now, Marra. Yeah, showing porn on their phones to each other.
And Josh doesn't like it.
Yeah. And it's not even like revenge porn, it's just porn in general, which I can't imagine a 16-year-old in the world who hasn't seen it. Oh, okay, maybe in Africa where they don't have mobile phones. But
Yeah.
Well, and again, there's this assumption that it's only men that watch porn for some reason. You know, girls don't watch it.
Girls watch porn.
Like that.
no, if you look at the Pornhub study on porn, it's funny.
It's 1 in 3.
The biggest searches for lesbian porn is actually women. You kinky little bitches, you.
Yeah, and 1 in 3 porn users are women. I mean, that's the stat they come up with. So, but I don't know. I did a live stream with No Holds Barred. We kind of talked about MGTOW, but it got a little bit off track. But I brought up this article, which was all about how young girls are being victimized at school because, boys these days, they get photos and they send them, and then the boys swap the photos around with each other like baseball cards or something, like cricket cards we had when I was a kid, rugby league cards or something. And now, of course, for some reason, the girls have absolutely no responsibility when sending these out. They're victims. And the study was really interesting because what it showed was that it's only a select small number of boys who are getting the photos and deliberately selecting these boys because, as the studies have shown, girls are not attracted to boys that don't get laid.
Yeah.
Sign of a boy
definitely.
who's not attractive, right? He doesn't. And so they're blaming these boys for getting these photos and sharing them around, yet these are the girls that they are selecting themselves to send them to. But of course, the girls are victims and the boys are nasty sort of perpetrators of this type of violence.
See, Clementine Ford has been harping on about this for months, and she's a piece of shit.
Yeah. And that's because she doesn't get any.
Now what?
Well, apparently she does because she had a baby in August.
Yeah, so one guy fucked her once, at least.
She's been fucked at least once.
Or artificial insemination, who knows?
That man must be such a just ball of no confidence.
I hate to use the word cuck, but I feel like it's pretty accurate for this.
I don't know if this is the father of her kid, but you know how she did that TEDx talk a few years ago?
Yeah.
She was saying in that, I'm pretty sure it was in that, about something about how, she's so hardcore into all this stuff that, she talks about it all the time. And one night her boyfriend just said to her, he's just like, sweetie, can we please just have one dinner where we're not talking about rape?
Right.
Like, apparently, like, that's a topic of dinner conversation, rape culture.
Desperately sad is that man to be.
I know.
I just finished reading her book, Fight Like a Girl, believe it
Oh
or
God,
not.
how is it?
Look, to be brutally honest, I have a little bit more sympathy for her now, because she was obviously raised by two very, very sexist parents.
Right.
She had zero self-esteem in high school, hated who she was, and then she started reading some like extremist feminist bell hooks type books.
Yeah.
And then rather than taking responsibility for her life and trying to resolve her own issues, she's attached onto feminism and just said, the cause of all problems in my life is men. So like I can sort of see why she is the way she is now. But the rest of the book is just fucking toxic. I think I got cancer from reading the book.
That just further proves my theory that the majority of like these hardcore Clementine Ford type feminists have shit relationships with their dads.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's a typical daddy issue thing.
Yeah, and it's this is why people like that end up in sort of cults or religions, because this is basically another cult. I mean, you've bottomed out and you've searched around, and instead of finding self-confidence and empowerment yourself, the kinds of things, being your best self or whatever you want to call it, you reach for the crutch. You reach for victimhood. You find out, oh, it's not me. It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault, and I can blame other people. People with dicks did this to me.
Yeah.
Have you seen that video Sargon of Akkad did on analysis of cults, I think it was called?
Yeah.
I think I did see that.
I can't really remember too much of it because it was ages ago, I think. But
well, it was quite a good video because the way he described it was completely objective and didn't try to put any parallels between feminism or SJWs or anything like that. But the whole time you listen to it, you're just sitting there going, holy fuck. These are just cults, blatant cults.
Yep, that's what they are. And it's for weak people. It's for, at the end of the day, it's for weak people. Weak people who've not really faced up to the realities of who they are, what is really, that life at the end of the day is, the only person that can really change it for is the person staring back at you in the mirror every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only real way through to empowerment. Did you guys see? If you maybe you don't subject yourself to this, but did you see Q&A last Monday night?
No, I didn't actually.
There was a woman on there. I forget her name. I do follow her on Twitter. She's a journalist, and she's started various businesses and failed and succeeded. And they were talking about jobs, and of course, the Q&A audience is just fucking left-hard heaven.
Oh,
and she said, well. They were talking about jobs and the economy, and for some reason, the crowd seems to think that Australia's in horrible economic straits or something, with an unemployment rate of 5% or whatever it is. And anyway, she was saying, well, she said, look, no one owes you a job. The government doesn't owe you a job. The government has no money. There is only your money and my money, and the only person that can do anything for you is you. And you should have seen them flip out. Flipped out, and that's a society. We have a generation, I'd say 2 generations of people who believe that the government is supposed to do something for them. And that
so how do we get here? What changed in society? I mean, feminism is obviously a factor, but surely it can't be the only factor.
Helicopter parents. I think the diversity.
What do you mean
movement,
by helicopter parents?
The overly coddling parents that always hover.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yeah, not like attack helicopter.
Yeah, because when this all came in, it's like this is obviously skipped my generation, but probably it's like that are my age that are parents and older. I'd say a little bit older than me. It started people maybe Gary's age that became the helicopter parents generation, where there was a time when you can go back and watch George Carlin talk about this in his comedy routines, where children are so important. We are the world and all this kind of stuff. And children. It's all about self-esteem, the self-esteem movement. Have you seen the statistics in the United States that says of all the developed countries in the world, the US ranks last in mathematical skills, but in terms of their confidence about how good at maths they are, they're the top.
Was that by Pew Research?
I don't know where. I just saw the stats and I don't know the source, but I mean, this whole self-esteem movement where your feelings about yourself became divorced from your actual achievements, and your actual abilities, so that now you could just be praised. As you see it today, like Bruce Jenner, in person because he decided to dress up as a woman. That's it. He didn't achieve anything. Actually, Bruce Jenner's a fucking idiot that ran over and killed someone while looking at his mobile phone, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, this is his biggest achievement. I mean, I should go back on that. His biggest achievement was to win a gold medal at the Olympics. But he celebrated more today because he decided to dress up as a woman.
He was celebrated until he admitted that he was a Republican. Now they all fucking hate him.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is that we can draw a line, I think, between the start of the self-esteem movement we are today. I'm not saying it's everything, but it's at least part of it.
It's a narcissist thing as well. And a few years ago, the DSM removed narcissism as a mental disorder, or as a psychological disorder. So what you have there is a whole bunch of people running around basically saying, well, this isn't a mental disorder. It's normalized.
Well, that's stupid because it's actually a form of psychopathy.
This is where I'm going to have to disagree with you guys. I think it's how self-esteem is taught that is the issue, not self-esteem itself. So I've got a few books on this. One on my desk is 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. And the premise of self-esteem is about taking responsibility for your own life and not beating yourself up for not having achieved stuff, as opposed to you are perfect regardless of everything. So if you're teaching someone that they're perfect, even if they fuck up every single time and they don't need to take responsibility for their life, I think that's extremely destructive. I think if it's taught in the right way, then it's extremely helpful.
And that's the one that's permeated society, unfortunately, because what is the fat acceptance movement? Except,
fucking retarded.
telling. Yeah, I mean, on no level is being fat good. Like, it's not good for your health. That's the biggest one. But the second one is this idea that you're attractive no matter what you look like. No, I mean, we can prove this. You go out with your nice, attractive, thin friend and see who gets more attention. This is not difficult.
Aren't they teaching this in the Safe Schools program as well? This whole body shaming idea?
I'm sure they are. I haven't got all the way through it, but I'm sure it's a part of it.
Probably.
I tell you what else is a part of it that you haven't probably heard about is that where they did the pilot programs for these safe schools, there was 19 schools I think were involved in 2015. They also did all these surveys about the staff and about who's in positions of power at that school and what's the male-female ratio. They're trying to interfere with school hierarchies as well, and they're trying to do, as they've been doing in all government organizations, they talk about workplace flexibility. Now, workplace flexibility has just become a euphemism for women to be promoted to high positions and get to knock off at 3 o'clock and go and pick up the kids. That's all it means. Women get to work less time and get promoted to higher positions. This is called workplace flexibility.
Now, you also did a video very, very recently about the effects of the Safe Schools program, in that only a very, very small percentage change occurred, like 4% or something like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I tell you, I don't think that's the most important finding, as I said in that video. So, and plus, attitudes take time, and it says that in there. So, if you have a look at one of the questions, so they put forth statements and they ask for agreement or disagreement. So, one of the statements was, university education is more important for boys. Now, I think the number was 90% either said they disagreed or didn't know. Now, I think the disagree was something like 57%. The rest said they didn't know, and 7% agreed. This is all about changing attitudes. Now, when they did the follow-up after the program, they found that only 5% agreed. So it went down, but it didn't change very much. Now, but my point is, if only 7% of kids had this attitude, this is a non-problem, right?
Yeah,
This is a non-problem. No one has these bad attitudes. And then there was another question like, men should lead in a relationship. Obviously, agreeing with that statement is wrong think. But when you ask, and women came into my comment section and said, I like it when a man leads. Actually,
yeah, exactly.
So the university question is probably, I agree with that one. But this one is not so cut and dried, because there are actually women out there who like men to take the initiative. And again, this is biological. It's not sort of some socialized oppression from the patriarchy.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, you couldn't have been dating a chick for 6 years and you'll still go to pick a DVD and you can ask her, what do you want to watch? And 100% of the time, I don't know, what do you want to watch?
Yeah. Don't get me started. I lived in Japan. So if you want to see what women there specifically don't tell you what they're thinking. You're fucking mind reader, you know. But then the flip side to that is they generally don't complain.
Yeah. No, that sounds perfect, really.
I mean, it's really frustrating. You go, oh, I don't care what you just get, whatever you want, you get what you want, and then you get what you want.
I don't want that.
Yeah, but then you watch the movie to the end and you go, oh, what'd you think? It's like, oh, well, I don't really like thrillers anyway. It's like,
for God's sake,
you know, it's like, oh God, really? You have that? Stab me in the throat.
How long were you in Japan for?
13 years or something, 13 and a half years. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, it was a few too many, to be honest. Should have come home a little earlier than that, but it was good for the most part. Sorry,
what were you going to say, Marra?
I was going to say the biggest issue in terms of that type of scenario in my house is dinner. It's like, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, I don't know, you pick. And he's like, steak. I'm like, no, I don't want steak. Okay, well, Mexican. No, I don't want Mexican. Pizza. No, I don't want that. Well, what do you want? I don't know, you pick. I'm easy.
Oh, that's so accurate. Jesus Christ.
I'm surprised he doesn't beat me on a daily basis.
Yeah, so am I.
Frustration.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I would just say in that situation, tonight, and you say, "I don't like steak," and say, "Well, sounds like you've got a problem. Looks like you need to cook something for yourself."
Don't give him my business listening to this.
Yeah.
Oh, you're fucked now, Marra.
Oh, fuck.
If he says, "Oh, look, we got some Mexican stuff here. I think we got some tacos. I'm going to make that," and you say, "Oh, I don't really feel like that," and you say, "Well, all right, well, guess that's more for me then." That's it.
Don't encourage him. Don't.
And as he's saying that, he should be giving you a backhander at the same time.
No, not a backhander. You got to use a fist. Since we're stronger, you've got to take advantage of it, obviously.
He just came out and said he'll heed your advice.
And for those listening, I am joking before anyone gets all fucking
triggered. Yeah. So those figures, what we were talking about before, I think prove that you don't even. The whole point of having this program to change attitudes that very few people hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, they want to create an issue that doesn't exist.
Well,
yep, it goes back to the old demand and supply problem.
Well, weren't you saying the other? I think it was you telling me this, that when they do surveys on about attitudes towards like violence against women against women, women against men, etc., etc.
Yep.
Men had the highest aversion to men hitting women. And women had
I saw that study somewhere.
So that's a White Ribbon Commission survey by that fuckwit Flood. That Richard Flood or whatever his name is. It goes around just spewing misinformation. Michael Flood. Now, it's so interesting. So they ask questions like, for example, is it okay to hit your partner if they throw something at you? Is it okay to hit your partner if they disagree with you. So it was in gradations of like a really minor thing
to an extreme.
to severe, right? And so they asked, is it okay? Is it okay? Is it okay? Now, what they found was that generally most people don't think it's okay to hit anyone in most of those situations. Now, when you get up to a point where it's something like she throws something at you, something like about 15% of men thought it was okay to hit a woman for that. But something like 28% of women thought it was okay to hit a man when he did that. So what this study actually showed, and remember, this was one of the bases for the whole advertising campaign that went on TV about, the little kid that pushes the girl. He closes the door on the girl and she falls down. That one.
Yeah.
So this is the whole basis for that. We've got to change male attitudes towards violence against women. Now, in every one of those situations that you look at in those studies, women are more okay with violence against men than men are with violence against women. Attitudes needs to change with respect to the other sex. It is women's. Now, what you don't see in there is that people who think violence against men is most acceptable is other men. So if you're going to address respect towards other people, men respecting each other should be the primary consideration. Women respecting men, and then after that it should be men respecting women. And guess what? Women think it's hardly ever okay to hit a woman because they're so fucking self-involved. They don't think they ever deserve it.
Yeah, we get raised to, like, everything is don't hit girls, don't hit girls, don't hit girls. I can remember even when I was in primary school, if a girl hit a boy and then he hit her back, he got in trouble and she got off scot-free.
Yeah, well, that hasn't really changed. Well, I tell you though, when I was in the 3rd grade, my brother was in the 5th or 6th grade, and there was a girl that was picking on him. We used to walk home from school together, and she was the same age as him. She was tall, and he had glasses. He had these thick Coke bottle glasses, right?
Yeah.
He was very placid, very lovely kid, and he still is. And not a kid, obviously, but he's a nice kid, not the kind of kid to fight back. He just took it. And I was in the 3rd grade, and I said to her, "I'm going to punch you in the face." And I did. And she kept doing it, and I punched her in the face. And I gave her a bleeding nose. And I got in trouble for that. And I never backed down. And I was in the 3rd grade. And I still don't give a fuck to this day. And I don't regret it at all. And I think she learned something.
Probably.
And so I'm an abuser.
You piece of shit.
Michael Flood misrepresented. There was a thing where he was basically blatantly called out saying that, it was around 30%. And he was making this big deal of that men said it was 30% of men said it was all right for men to hit a woman. And it actually turned opposite. It was the opposite. He got the statistic wrong, and he had to back down and apologise. It was actually 30% of what was it?
Women.
Men said it was all right for a woman to hit a guy.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. He actually got it completely ass backwards. And he's another one who went around repeating this statistic that 23% of kids had seen their father abuse their mother, right? Yeah. And so everybody lost their shit, and they were saying 1 in 4 kids has seen their father abuse their mother. You know the bit he left out? 22% of kids reported seeing their mother abuse their father.
Also, he's another one that's had a big hand in the problems that exist now in the family court system. He's had a lot of influence in the female narrative of that all the women have to do is get in there and make some false fucking allegation about domestic violence, and that's it. He doesn't see the kids anymore.
Wouldn't you love to find out that guy's background and find out that he was bullied as a kid, that he was a boy that was bullied by other boys, and this is his fucking sick revenge?
I think he was in the first episode of Man Up as well. I've got to record it off iView before they take it down, because what I want to do is I want to record the entire series.
Yep.
Man Up, and then I'm going to tear that fucking show about 15 new arseholes, because it says the odd thing that you go, yeah, but there is so much shit in that fucking series.
Oh god,
Yeah.
no doubt.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to have to wrap it up here because
It's getting late.
my roommate's about to get on to a conference call and it's going to fuck up my internet.
Mhm.
So I feel like we could probably go on for another, 3 hours?
Probably.
Yes.
But yeah, it's been really, really good chatting to you guys. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yep.
No worries.
And
No
just keep an
worries.
eye out for the Everyday Privilege project coming your way.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So anyone watching this who hasn't subscribed to me, you're a piece of shit. So
Yeah.
please go to my channel and fix that problem. But yeah, let's do this again sometime.
Righto.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Cheers, guys. Have a good night.
Mhm.
Okay, you too.
Take it easy, mate.